Chapter 765. Xiao Yuchan. Qin Feng. In the sea of clouds, Qin Feng looked at the purple-clothed young man indifferently from a few hundred feet away. He had a face of 15 or 16 years old. His devilishly handsome face was filled with a strange holiness. He was elegant and untainted. When he first met this young man during the trial in the snow region, this young man's handsome appearance had left a deep impression on Qin Feng. At that time, Xiao Yuchan was someone that Qin Feng had to look up to. He was high up and had a group of girls around him. He was in the limelight. However, after a year, there was a trace of maturity on the purple-clothed young man's handsome face. However, at that moment, the purple-clothed young man was no longer someone that Qin Feng had to look up to. On the contrary, in Qin Feng's eyes, the purple-clothed young man was like an ant. Even though the purple-clothed young man was already a martial arts overlord who had mastered the light god-slaying skill, he was still a martial arts overlord. At that moment, the purple-clothed young man's face was gloomy. Looking at the black-clothed young man who was as handsome as a god, fear flashed across Xiao Yuchan's eyes. He moved the corner of his mouth and spoke after a while. "Qin Feng, can you give me that steel?" "Xiao Yuchan, we are from the same batch. Although we have fought before, there are no unresolvable grievances. Therefore, I don't want to make things difficult for you. You can leave." A sneer flashed across Qin Feng's mouth. What kind of treasure was the Chunbei light steel? How could he give away the treasure just because of Xiao Yuchan's words? Moreover, the Chunbei light steel had already merged with the elemental realm of light. It was difficult to take it out. Xiao Yuchan clearly felt Qin Feng's obvious rejection. He was also very clear that no one would give a treasure like the Chunbei light steel to a stranger whom they had no relationship with. This was as he had expected. "Qin Feng, this stone tablet is very important to me. Can I use my own things to exchange for it?" "Xiao Yuchan, you and I are acquaintances now. You have cultivated the light god slaughtering art. You should know the value of that stone tablet. The immemorial Sui sovereign steel, although it is only a ninth of it, you should know what level of treasure it is. It is the supreme treasure used by the immemorial Sui sovereign to suppress demons." A strange look appeared in Qin Feng's eyes. He was still very interested in the light god-slaying art, which was known as the #1 art of light in all heavens. He had devoured a part of the absolute beginning star's origin. The absolute beginning star was originally the star of light. If he could learn the light god-slaying technique, he would benefit immensely. However, Qin Feng also knew that the possibility of this happening was slim to none. As long as Xiao Yuchan's head wasn't kicked by a donkey, he wouldn't impart this divine art to him. Hence, Qin Feng wasn't interested in Xiao Yuchan's wealth. "I have a supreme treasure called the light god-slaying spear. This divine weapon is a immemorial true weapon, forged by the most famous blacksmith under the immemorial Sui sovereign, Gongsun Sheng. This light god-slaying spear is a top-notch middle heaven grade true weapon. This spear has killed many strong evil gods. The most famous 10 evil commanders under Mahakala was killed by this spear. This divine spear should be enough to exchange for that stone tablet, right?" Xiao Yuchan pondered for a moment and took out a long spear that emitted a soft white sharp radiance. His eyes revealed a trace of pain. If he didn't know that he couldn't defeat Qin Feng, he wouldn't have cut his flesh like this. Qin Feng's eyes landed on this long spear. The sharp aura under the long spear seemed to have frozen the void, causing him to be shocked. This was indeed a good item. The immemorial blacksmith Gongsun Sheng was said to be the disciple of the immemorial blacksmith ancestor. He was a famous blacksmith in the spirit sea realm. Many famous true weapons were forged by this master. This immemorial light god-slaying spear wasn't an ordinary true weapon. Back then, its owner was the famous light martial god under the Sui sovereign. That light martial god was known as the strongest person under the Sui sovereign. Countless terrifying immemorial martial Dao experts died in his hands. Qin Feng pondered for a moment, but still shook his head in the end. Although this divine weapon is good, I don't cultivate the power of light. This item doesn't have much value to me. It's not suitable for me to use. Xiao Yuchan heard him and frowned. He cursed in his heart. What do you mean by not cultivating the power of light? It's not suitable for you to use. The art of chaos stars could simulate all kinds of elemental powers. Moreover, the core of it was the power of stars. It wasn't wrong to say that it was the power of light. This was obviously raising the price on the spot. Xiao Yuchan was helpless. He pondered for a moment and flipped his sleeves. A pure white seed that looked like a star floated above his palm. Faint pure spiritual light was emitted from the seed, as if it had the power to turn the void into a pure land of light. This is... Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a trace of shock and passion. This is the seed of light ancient tree, a god-level spirit root of light. Xiao Yuchan's eyes flashed with intense pain. He originally planned to completely merge this seed into the light god slaying art to increase the power of the light god slaying art. Now, he could only take it out to exchange with Qin Feng, this greedy fellow. Light ancient tree. Qin Feng's eyes fluctuated violently. A god-level spirit root. The value of such a spirit root was simply unimaginable. Qin Feng couldn't help but be surprised by Xiao Yuchan's wealth. To be able to take out such a treasure, he obviously had other more valuable items on him. If they weren't from the same sect, Qin Feng would have the impulse to kill and rob. Qin Feng pondered. This light ancient tree seed was different from the earth ancient tree seed in the earth god's secret realm. The earth ancient tree seed had yet to germinate. Even if it was watered with the water of life, it wouldn't work. However, this light ancient tree was different. With the nourishment of the light elemental realm's power of origin, this ancient tree would definitely be able to survive. If it could be planted in the light elemental realm, the light elemental realm might be completely perfected. Once the light elemental realm was perfected, the benefits to the grotto heaven wouldn't be as simple as 1 + 1. Xiao Yuchan could see that Qin Feng was already tempted. His eyes were filled with confidence. He believed that Qin Feng wouldn't be able to resist such a temptation. A second-generation god-level spirit root had an irreplaceable suppressive effect on the grotto heaven. If he hadn't cultivated the light god slaying art and had completely shattered the grotto heaven and merged it with the light god slaying art, he wouldn't be willing to exchange this level of spirit root seed. After pondering for a while, Qin Feng shook his head and made a promise that Xiao Yuchan found hard to accept. To tell you the truth, the North Qin Radiance steel has been completely merged into the grotto heaven. How is this possible? Xiao Yuchan was in a daze. The importance of the North Qin Radiance steel to him was self-evident. Xiao Yuchan was even more in disbelief. The North Qin Radiance steel was a primordial treasure that contained power that ordinary inborn true weapons didn't have. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to refine it. Another Hall Master has appeared. There are 2 more updates later. Chapter 766. However, it's not like there's no other way. Although this divine steel has been integrated into the grotto heaven, if you trust me, you can comprehend it in my grotto heaven. Of course, there's a price. The price is your light ancient tree seed. With a smile in his eyes, Qin Feng waved his sleeves and a huge grotto heaven appeared in his palm. It was a big world that contained boundless light and was filled with light origin qi. The vast energy fluctuation made Xiao Yuchan's hair stand on end. He had a terrifying illusion that he was as small as an ant. Xiao Yuchan was instinctively moved by this suggestion. He could see that it was a powerful plane filled with pure light origin qi. The primordial light aura in it made Xiao Yuchan very excited. However, it was very dangerous to enter the grotto heaven of an unknown expert to cultivate. Forgive me, I can't promise you that now. After thinking about it, Xiao Yuchan shook his head. He couldn't put his star fate in someone else's hands. A stream of light faded away, and Xiao Yuchan vanished without a sound. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with regret. In the next moment, he collected himself and headed towards Peach Blossom Village. Half a day later, in Peach Blossom Village, Qin Feng suddenly appeared. In the meeting hall, a group of people was having a discussion. When they saw a figure suddenly appear, they were shocked at first. Then, they quickly bowed. Village head. Qin Feng glanced at the two deputy village heads, Lian Biun and Pei Shang. Below Lian Biun and Pei Shang were the martial arts experts who were guarding the village. You may rise. Qin Feng nodded slightly. Village head, you have been missing for half a day. Not long ago, Shaoyang Village had another decree. Once you appear, go to Shaoyang Village immediately. Although some people in the village were not convinced by the new village head, they didn't dare to be disrespectful. He was the first to break through the gate of the Golden Light Demon Palace, the 18 Sky Palaces, and the 72 Treasure Halls. It was even rumored that the final core of the Golden Light Demon Palace was broken by him. Since Lian Biun and Pei Shang had a special status, they had heard some obscure rumors from certain channels. Many of the old antiques in the sect seemed to have a good impression of Qin Feng. Recently, those old antiques had sent out many people to inquire about Qin Feng, intending to get in touch with him. Thinking of the identities of those old antiques, Lian Baiyun couldn't help but feel a chill from the bottom of her heart. Even if it was his master, the head seat of Dumu Peak, he was still a junior before these seniors. Shaoyang Stronghold. Could it be that they want me to pick the spoils of war? Qin Feng secretly guessed. 2 hours later, Qin Feng appeared in front of the Shaoyang camp. The Shaoyang Stronghold was a huge stronghold built on top of a top-grade spirit mountain called the Nine Suns Mountain. It was originally the Golden Crow clan's blessed land. The huge mountain stronghold didn't look like a mountain stronghold at all. Instead, it looked more like a sect. There were mountains and valleys, and the extremely dense fire element spiritual energy turned into a solid mist. A fiery red mist shrouded the mountain, and the fire mulberry trees bloomed with flames. Fire mulberry trees. This was a type of fire element spiritual root. This kind of spiritual root was very precious, but it could be found everywhere on the Nine Suns Mountain. Each of them was as red as coral and spicy. Many of them had thick roots, and the ancient branches had a faint golden flame luster. This was the 1,000-year fire mulberry trees. What a beautiful scene! Sighing inwardly, Qin Feng flew down the stairs in front of the mountain. The fiery red stairs went straight to the clouds. There were rows of star soldiers patrolling around the stairs. Seeing Qin Feng's figure landing, they were slightly startled and then respectfully saluted. Qin Feng was slightly puzzled. These star soldiers and star generals seemed to know him. The fiery red stairs were very long, but with Qin Feng's speed, he quickly reached the Shaoyang Palace at the top of the mountain. The ancient board emitted a fiery red brilliance, like an ancient sun, making people feel reverence. Shaoyang Palace, these 3 ancient words, revealed a trace of vigorous and powerful concept. In front of the palace, 2 young palace generals wearing fiery armor stopped Qin Feng. Are you Senior Qin Feng? The 2 young palace generals were unusually respectful. This kind of respect made Qin Feng a little confused. These people who served in the front lines were not people who understood etiquette. Each of them could be said to be fierce and unruly. Although he was puzzled, Qin Feng still nodded. I am Qin Feng. Qin Feng took out his disciple token and threw it to the 2. The 2 palace generals only took a look and immediately returned it respectfully. This disciple token could not be faked. The 3 fort masters said that if you arrived, you could directly enter the palace for an audience. The 2 palace generals opened up a path. Qin Feng nodded. Qin Feng, you have finally arrived. A faint voice like a spring breeze came. In the huge palace like a giant's palace, because of this voice, it seemed to be infinitely vast. Qin Feng raised his head and looked over. On the main seat of the palace, a figure like a green sun appeared on the third throne. The two thrones in front were empty, for perfected Lord Jiuan and perfected Lord Hongyang. This was the third fort master, perfected Lord Qin Huang. This time around, Qin Feng could clearly see the appearance of this person. This was a middle-aged man with a simple and unadorned face. His features were solemn and meticulous. His jet-black hair seemed to have a life of its own as it was tied up by a simple and unadorned pine hairpin. "Greetings, perfected Lord Qin Huang." Qin Feng bowed slightly. "Qin Feng, this old man can't accept such a big bow from you." Perfected Lord Qin Huang looked at Qin Feng in the palace with a smile. A grade 7 mystic master was a grandmaster array master. No matter which sect a grade 7 mystic master joined, his status was comparable to a grand elder. Not to mention, this grade 7 mystic master was from the same sect, so his status was even more special. If it wasn't for the safety of this person, the perfected Lord Qin Huang might have directly conferred him a title. Even so, he can't stay at the front lines. The savage battlefield is too dangerous. If this person dies at the front lines, we can't afford to take the blame. The perfected Lord Qin Huang thought to himself. The perfected Lord Qin Huang said solemnly, "Peach Blossom Stockade Lord Qin Feng, listen up. Disciple Qin Feng, listen up." Qin Feng cupped his fists. With Niu Jinfeng's true teachings, Qin Feng has stood at the front lines and made great contributions. The sect will confer you the title of Divine General Fu Bo. You are to return to the sect with your star cannon jade belt and 100,000 star soldiers and star generals to await further orders. This, Qin Feng frowned. Why was he transferred back? He had just made a name for himself in the savage battlefield. Wasn't this messing around? Could it be that someone is making things difficult for me? Qin Feng muttered to himself. However, it didn't seem like it. The 100,000 star soldiers and star generals were real privileges. Ordinary divine generals didn't have such privileges. Seeing Qin Feng's doubtful expression, the perfected Lord Qin Huang sighed. Who would want to betray such a talent? Unfortunately, this was the will of the sect's elders. Even the Sky Emperor Palace couldn't stop it. Qin Feng, this is the mission given to you by the sect. Don't doubt it. Recently, there have been traces of an ancient evil god appearing in your hometown, the Yen Kingdom. You need to suppress it. The sect wants you to go to the southwest and take up the position of Star Palace Master there. Also, help the sect suppress those empires that are ready to make a move. There are traces that indicate that those empires are colluding with the evil god that is about to appear. Also, Chapter 767. What was a Diablo? It was a tyrannical existence that did not receive the official title of emperor. It claimed to be a god and festered in private. Anything that had the word God in it was undoubtedly not simple. The ancient Diablo was extremely powerful. However, most of them were wiped out by the 5 Desolation Great Emperor. Only a small number of ancient evil gods managed to escape the calamity. Most of them chose to seal themselves to avoid the 5 Thearchs' attack. When the Golden Era arrived, the ancient Diablo sensed the changes in the outside world and naturally came out. In the chaos caused by the opening of the Golden Era, the ancient Diablo was the first wave. Many families, sects, and countries with long histories were destroyed by the ancient Diablo. However, according to Qin Feng's knowledge, the ancient Diablo would not be very strong in a short period of time after they came out. In the first stage, the ancient Diablo would quietly come out and then hide to recover their strength. The second stage was terrifying. Once they recovered a certain amount of strength, the lawless Diablo would launch a catastrophe to recover all their strength and attack the god realm. The Diablo was a god, but a fake one. They only had a trace of the power of the god realm. Or they used special methods to obtain some of the authority of the demon god. During this period of time, not only Xingqian school, but also the 72 sects had discovered some signs of the Diablo being born. The Diablo is starting to come out. It seems like the golden era has officially begun. The Diablo calamity is the first wave of the golden era. Qin Feng's face was solemn. May I ask what kind of Diablo this is? Is there any record of it in the sect? It's a mountain god. Mountain god. Qin Feng was stunned. He had once obtained a treasure called the Mountain God Pearl. The Mountain God Pearl was a treasure born from the soul of the spiritual mountains and rivers that had absorbed the spiritual energy for tens of thousands of years. If the Mountain God Pearl was cultivated for a long time, it would give birth to spirituality. This was a mountain god, a natural ruler of the mountains. Mountain gods that were born in this way were usually righteous gods. As they cultivated, it was very easy for them to attain the earth deity position or some minor post-celestial deity position of the earth deity position. This mountain god's name is Shangzhang. He used to be the mountain god of the 9 Pinnacles Mountain in the Yen country. However, because he abused his authority, he chased away the spiritual mountains and blocked the waterways, causing the waterways to deteriorate. Thousands of living beings lost their homes and were punished by the great emperor of the south. This god was afraid of the great emperor's authority and sealed his soul in the mountains. You should be aware that there are countless mountains in the spirit sea realm. Even with the methods of the Southern Desolation Emperor at that time, it was undoubtedly like searching for a needle in a haystack. Qin Feng shook his head. This was more than just looking for a needle in a haystack. The field of stars was incomparably vast, with mountains and rivers everywhere. To find a completely self-proclaimed mountain god in the mountains was simply impossible. Unless the southern wasteland great emperor was like the savage king and refined all the earth veins and water veins into the mountain river map, there might be a chance. Refining all the earth veins and water veins was an impossible task. Many sects occupied the best spirit veins and water veins and refined their earth veins. The water veins were their lifeblood. Even someone as powerful as the Southern Desolation Emperor could not do it. However, according to Qin Feng's understanding of sealing technique, ordinary sealing techniques would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Southern Desolation Emperor. Presumably, the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God had also made up his mind. He must have used an extremely powerful sealing technique to seal his aura, fate, and soul. Otherwise, he would not have been able to escape from the hands of the Southern Desolation Emperor. In the ancient era, there were so many evil gods that were much more powerful than the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God. However, they were all killed or sealed by the 5 emperors. Seeing Qin Feng frowning, true monarch Qing Huang smiled and said, "Qin Feng, don't feel too pressured. Although the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God is one of the ancient evil gods, his ranking is not high. Moreover, he has sealed himself for too long. I'm afraid his cultivation is even lower than yours. The problem now is that he has hidden too deeply. You need to find him and eliminate him." After saying that, true monarch Qing Huang's face turned serious. If such an evil god continues to exist, it will be a catastrophe for the myriad star field. I hope that Qin Feng can be careful and eliminate all evil. Qin Feng nodded. Actually, to be honest, this is a lucrative job. As everyone knows, there are different classes of deity positions. First class innate deity position, second class middle deity position, and third class acquired deity position. Actually, below these 3 classes, there is a lesser deity position. This lesser deity position is an authority created by heaven and earth. For example, the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God's Mountain God position is one of the lesser deity positions. Once you obtain it, you will be able to control the mountains and rivers. Although you can't reach the heavens in a single step, this deity position is still comparable to the Wood Ancestor position. At the thought of the 2 Wood Ancestor positions, true monarch Qing Huang's eyes flashed with envy. If I can obtain the Mountain God position, I might be able to combine this lesser deity position and advance further. In true monarch Qing Huang's opinion, although this ancient evil god was dangerous, he was still a fat pig. Alright, you may leave. By the way, you can go to the treasury and choose 2 items. This is your right. The sect has already said that whoever can enter Transformation Palace first can choose first. Now that the battle of the Golden Light Demon Kingdom is about to come to an end, you may go and choose first. True monarch Qing Huang took out an ancient black token. This is the token to enter the treasury. Take it and hand it to the elders guarding the treasury. They will know what to do. Qin Feng took it, nodded, and turned to leave. At this moment, true monarch Qing Huang called out to Qin Feng again. By the way, Qin Feng, there's one more thing. Qin Feng's expression changed. He turned around and saw true monarch Qing Huang waving his hand. 5-dimensional universe rings appeared in front of Qin Feng. Qin Feng took them and scanned through the piles of treasures. There were mountains of standard spiritual herbs, countless high-grade spirit crystals, standard refining materials, divine metal used to forge divine weapons, and spiritual swords. There were also a few boxes of high-grade orbs of will. There were a total of 5 rings and 5 small mountains. Even though Qin Feng had quite a lot of wealth, he couldn't help but be shocked. This is? Qin Feng looked at true monarch Qing Huang. This wealth was comparable to the savings of a county's prestigious family for thousands of years. A county's prestigious family was only one step away from being a feudal family. The 9 great families of Mountain River City could only be considered as ordinary 1,000-year-old families. They were far from being a county's prestigious family. Now, the Cloud Lake City's Qin family could barely be considered a county's prestigious family. Of course, if they were to add the wealth in front of them, they would truly be a county's prestigious family. This is a gift from Light Master, Psychic, Metal Spirit, Fufeng, and 9 dragons. I hope that you can let them go. On the throne, true monarch Qing Huang's eyes flashed with a hint of helplessness. Qin Feng came to a sudden realization. These 5 Saint Kings had previously made a bet with him. Whoever lost would have to run a few laps around Golden Light Demon City naked. Clearly, these 5 Saint Kings could not bring themselves to lose face. Now, they had asked true monarch Qing Huang to invite them over. Chapter 768. Looking at the 5-dimensional universe rings in front of him, Qin Feng decided not to pursue the matter and let the 5 sage kings go. The reason was simple. Since true monarch Qing Huang had stepped in, he naturally had to give him face. Also, if he forced the 5 sage kings to run around naked, it would only add 5 more enemies for him. There was no benefit at all. He might as well accept the generous gift in front of him. After receiving the storehouse token, Qin Feng chose 2 treasures. Although the Golden Light Fiend Nation was considered wealthy, there were limited divine spirit roots like the 3 realms Fulling Wood and the Golden Light Glass Vine. Qin Feng chose 2 treasures, both of which were true treasures. One was a metal elemental true grand golden dagger axe. This grand white dagger axe was an ancient dagger axe made of grand white divine iron. It had 33 layers of heavenly astral seals and could be considered a top Hotian true treasure. Compared to the Chongmingli flame pearl, this metal elemental true treasure was more suitable for Yu Yao. The other one was a rare ice attribute true artifact, which was a bead. Xian Ing Snow Soul Pearl. This was an ice elemental true treasure with 27 layers of heavenly astral seals. It was also an ancient treasure. It was a treasure born after being nurtured by the Xian Ing cold qi in the snow mountain of heaven and earth for 10,000 years. It could also help a martial artist cultivate a second primordial spirit and have 2 lives. At the same time, it was also an excellent ice elemental true treasure. It could produce the snow soul divine light that could freeze everything. It was an extremely precious treasure. After taking these 2 treasures, Qin Feng went to the barracks and selected 100,000 astral soldiers and astral generals. He then headed toward the Xingqian school like a river of stars. Martial Uncle Qing Huang, did you really let him take away 100,000 of the most elite astral soldiers and astral generals? After Qin Feng left, 5 figures appeared in the palace. Light Sage King, Spirit Sage King, 9 Dragon Sage King, True Lord Fufeng, and Patriarch Golden Spirit appeared in the Shaoyang Palace. The 5 Sage Kings looked at True Monarch Qing Huang in confusion. True Monarch Qing Huang didn't look like someone who was easy to talk to. 100,000 astral soldiers and astral generals was not a small number. Even though the Shaoyang stronghold had recently recruited countless monsters and other races as supplements, the Shaoyang stronghold still didn't have enough manpower. I don't think they are elite soldiers. Those fleeing lights are obviously mixed in color. Most of them should be star warriors of the demon clan and the alien race. Light Master Sage King looked at True Lord Qing Huang suspiciously. He knew this senior brother of his very well. This old man had been in charge of the Shaoyang stronghold for hundreds of years, and he had always been meticulous in his calculations. It was unlikely that he would give away his elite troops. The star soldiers aren't weak either. Those monsters and foreign races have all cultivated the art of chaos star transformation. Although they aren't as strong as the elites of our sex, they are definitely elite soldiers compared to the soldiers of ordinary sections. Moreover, this old man has carefully selected them. These 100,000 star soldiers and star generals are all good fighters. I'm worthy of Qin Feng. Perfected Lord Green Emperor felt the pinch. In this battle, the Shaoyang stronghold had lost a lot of star soldiers and star generals. It was not easy for them to replenish their numbers, but they still had to give 100,000 to Qin Feng. Perfected Lord Green Emperor was already unhappy. That's enough. Now that this true disciple has left, the Peach Blossom stronghold has an empty stronghold lord position. This is a win-win situation. Sage King Tongling smiled coldly. The stronghold lord position was something that even sage kings like them coveted. Qin Feng didn't lose out. Although he left the Peach Blossom stronghold lord position, the sect gave him the position of prefecture lord. Perfected Lord Green Emperor's eyes flickered with an undetectable fluctuation. Even with his current status, Perfected Lord Green Emperor could not help but feel jealous of the position of prefecture lord. The sect is actually treating him so well? The 5 sage kings opened their mouths wide and their eyes reddened. The position of prefecture lord was only one step away from the position of hall lord. It was different from the organization of the battlefield. Within the realm of stars, many nations had constellation temples set up by Xingqian school for the sect to collect orbs of will. Generally speaking, small towns like Upper River Town and Lower River Town would have temple lords. Temple lords were the lowest level unit. Temple lords were in charge of the orbs of will of the town, including the surrounding villages. Above the temple lords were the palace lord. A palace lord oversaw a small town and commanded a county of temple lords. All the temple lords under the county had to pay tribute to the palace lord every year. For example, a small town like Mountain River City in the Yen Kingdom had a Mountain River Palace Lord. Above the Palace Lord was the Cave Lord. The Cave Lord oversaw a county, and his residence was usually set up in a county's capital. All the county palace lords were under the jurisdiction of the Cave Lord, and the collected orbs of will would be paid to the Cave Lord every year. Above the Cave Lord was the Mountain Lord. A Mountain Lord oversaw a country, oversaw the capital, and received tributes from the Cave Lords of the various counties. For example, the Great Yen Kingdom only had one Great Yen Mountain Lord. Above the Mountain Lord was the Prefecture Lord. A Prefecture Lord oversaw a mid-ranked county, and received tributes from all the Mountain Lords of the low-ranked counties under the mid-ranked county. True Monarch Green Emperor and the others didn't know how powerful a mid-ranked county was, but based on the population and the amount of orbs of will they could contribute every year, it was definitely several times more than the Peach Blossom Stockade Master, or even more than 10 times. If this middle-ranked commandery had many lower-ranked commanderies under its command, then the tribute that the chief of the Shaoyang village could receive would not be less than the tribute that the chief of the Shaoyang village could receive. This was a lucrative position. It was no wonder that the 5 Saint Kings were envious. However, even though they were envious, they still wanted to enter the fertile lands in the center of the domain of stars and become the prefecture lord. This wasn't a position that just anyone could get. Even Saint Kings like them weren't qualified to go back and fill the vacant position of prefecture lord. Unless they were able to make contributions like Qin Feng on the battlefield, conquering a country and obtaining the greatest merit, they would have a chance to fill the vacant position of prefecture lord. The 5 of them still had a chance, and that was the vacant Peach Blossom Stockade master position. Bronze Hill Stockade, Primordial Cave. Bang, bang, bang. Accompanied by a series of thunderous roars, the sound of things being broken could be heard. You're saying that Qin Feng made a great contribution and became the prefecture lord of Zhuzi country? Yi Ding gritted his teeth, and the anger in his eyes almost turned into flames. A middle-aged martial expert wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and got up from the ground. He lowered his head and didn't dare to make a sound. Didn't I ask you to contact some experts from the wilderness to stop this person? Are you all useless? My foster father raised you for so long, but what's the use of that? Yi Ding roared. Prefecture lord. Yi Ding's eyes were burning with jealousy when he thought of the benefits that position represented. What are those old fogies thinking? How can Qin Feng be qualified to be the prefecture lord? Are those old fogies' brains rotten? He roared furiously like an injured beast, and a tyrannical aura emanated from him. Many of the concubines in the spiritual cave abode were terrified, and their subordinates were trembling in fear. Yi Ding only felt that a nameless fire almost made him explode in anger. Qin Feng's luck was too good. Not long after he took office, he encountered a great battle. This was a real military merit. Even if he was Gong Ao's adopted son, he could not use his influence to erase this kind of military merit. Why didn't I encounter such a great battle? Yi Ding's eyes were red, and there was a terrifying sense of unwillingness, jealousy, and viciousness in his eyes. No, I can't let this worthless bumpkin step on me. I can't let Qin Feng have it easy. There were 3 more in the evening. Chapter 769. Astral soldiers were a type of soldier. Most of the major sects would raise soldiers. Most of the cultivation arts that soldiers could cultivate weren't very advanced. However, it was different for the 72 orthodox sects, such as Xingqian school. For example, the Xingqian school's primeval star refinement art was a rather advanced cultivation art. When cultivated to the highest level, one could even guide the origin of the main stars in the galaxy and obtain the support of the origin to become a Star-Lord. A Star-Lord was a minor deity position formed by the power of the stars. If one could become a Star-Lord, it wasn't impossible for them to become a Star-Lord. 100,000 astral soldiers and astral generals were connected with Qin Feng through the power of the galaxy. Their speed was like a river of stars rolling through the void. That terrifying power made the experts of the various countries tremble uncontrollably. Among the southwestern countries, Zhuzi country was average in terms of national strength. It had 4 to 5 low-rank commanderies under its rule. Its territory was vast, and its royal family was arrogant. It was a famous royal family. Under Zhuzi country's rule, the Yen kingdom wasn't particularly eye-catching. The Yen kingdom wasn't far from the land of bitter cold. The land there was barren, and spiritual mountains were rare. It was considered a low-rank commandery that was about to break away from Zhuzi country's rule. Qin Feng first went to the Xingqian school to report and received the school lord seal. Then, he led 100,000 astral soldiers and astral generals towards Zhuzi country. Zhuzi country's capital was Jade Capital. From afar, Jade Capital was like a flying dragon. The Jade Dragon was complementing it, and the providence of the mountains and rivers gathered above this colossal ancient capital. Zhuzi country was the color of wealth. Zhuzigua lived up to its name of wealth. Everywhere was plentiful. Far away in the Dragon Canal, there were countless ships on the wide river. Along with the soft music, it was as if this was a river of wealth. Jade Capital's constellation temple cultivated on Mount Yunwu outside Jade Capital. This was a rare level 9 spiritual mountain. After generations of Zhuzi country's school lords, this place was exceptionally beautiful and contained a blessed land. The previous Zhuzi schoolmaster had also fallen during the 6th Great Sage Tribulation. Otherwise, Qin Feng would not be able to enjoy such benefits. Under the cloud-like starlight, the clouds in the cloud mist mountain fluctuated, and a great Tao appeared before Qin Feng. Zhuzi Fu Great Deacon Li Ruoshan and the 8 mountain chieftains pay their respects to the prefecture lord. In the distance, the 5 black-robed deacons bowed. The 5 black-robed deacons all exuded a strong aura. 4 of them were wearing robes with black clouds and silver threads. The leader, Li Ruoshan, was indeed wearing robes with black clouds and gold threads that only the great deacon would have. In terms of aura, this Grand Deacon was a Stage 2 Supreme Almighty. The other 4 deacons were all Stage 1 Almighties. Behind the 5 of them were the 8 mountain lords. Their expressions varied. Some were indifferent, some were scrutinizing, some were sizing them up, and some were even somewhat unconvinced. They were indeed unconvinced. Among the 8 mountain lords, many of them were boundary sages. The 3 mountain lords in the Jin country, Baoyu country, and Dalong dynasty were true sages. This is the new schoolmaster. He looks very young, and most importantly, he's a boundary sage. The great Deacon Li Ruoshan raised his head and sized up the black-robed young man who was strolling over. He was a little curious. The position of mansion master was usually held by a true disciple who had some influence in the sect, or a powerful elder. Zhuzi country was one of the 18 prefectures in the southwest. According to the usual practice, they should have at least sent a sage ruler to hold the fort. However, there seemed to be an exception this time. Qin Feng. Li Ruoshan had heard of him before. He was a prominent figure in the sect in the past 2 years. In less than 2 years, he had become a true disciple. Many powerful overlords in the sect believed that Qin Feng might be the reincarnation of some ancient figure. However, in Li Ruoshan's opinion, it was not a good thing to be in the limelight at such a young age. Especially when he was the schoolmaster of Zhuzi country. The tallest tree in the forest would be destroyed by the wind. At this time, many people had their eyes on this new schoolmaster. Furthermore, the 8 mountain masters are all ambitious people. If we can't suppress the 8 mountain masters, I'm afraid that it will be another disaster. Ever since Zhuzifu's previous prefecture master, Lan Yun Saint King, had passed away, these mountain chieftains had been eyeing the position of prefecture master covetously. Some of them had even contacted the neighboring Xianping prefecture and Jinbo prefecture, waiting for an opportunity to seek refuge in another prefecture. Qin Feng took in the expressions of the 8 mountain chieftains as a cold smile appeared in his eyes. These people seemed to be waiting for the best offer. The 8 mountain lords were the 9 Pinnacles mountain lords of the Yin country. Jin country, East Origin mountain lord. Black Water country, Pitfall mountain lord. Dalong country, Chui Ping mountain lord. Baoyu country, Cold Spring mountain lord. Dakong, Red Maple mountain lord. Deyong, Small Mang mountain lord. And the largest Zhuzi country, Jade Sun mountain lord. Among them, the most ambitious ones were Jin country's East Origin mountain lord, Baoyu country's Cold Spring mountain lord, and Dalong country's Chui Ping mountain lord. These 3 mountain lords were all sages and were the most ambitious. Even when facing Qin Feng, the flames of ambition were not concealed in the slightest. Very good, Qin Feng has been appointed as the schoolmaster of Zhuzi country. I'm very happy that all of you can come. Qin Feng scanned the people in front of the arch. Many of them had a disapproving look on their faces. I've always been straightforward when it comes to speaking and doing things. As the saying goes, I'll say the ugly words first. Follow me and work for me loyally. I won't let you suffer. However, if anyone disobeys and tries to harm my Juzi country's interests, a trace of coldness flashed and slightly triggered the power of the chaotic heavenly abode. A vast power descended on Yunwu Mountain and swept across the experts of Juzi country. Many cultivators felt their muscles stiffen as an extremely terrifying force almost crushed them into dust in an instant. Many people wanted to resist, but before they could even use their true force and laws, they were instantly crushed by the vast power. It was as if they were ants in front of that power. For a moment, the 5 deacons, 8 mountain lords, and even many cave masters who were meeting felt as if they had been fished out of cold sweat. They stared at the black-clothed youth as if he was a monster. He was actually so powerful? For a moment, many mountain lords felt their limbs turn cold as they stared at Qin Feng with extreme fear. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Crown Prince Chang Qin's mouth was cold as he watched this scene in front of the 100,000 astral soldiers. After a period of understanding, Chang Qin knew his senior brother very well. Domineering, protective, and unable to tolerate even a speck of sand in his eyes. These people thought that they could play tricks under his nose. It was too laughable. This time it was a deterrent. If they did not restrain themselves, a few of the 8 mountain lords might lose their heads. However, Chang Qin could not wait for such a situation to happen. The position of mountain lord was extremely honorable. He had given up the favorable conditions of the battlefield and followed the 4 saints of Willow Earth, all for this mountain lord position. Chapter 770. There were 100,000 astral soldiers and astral generals in Yunwu Mountain, plus 3 of the 4 sages of Liutu. Qin Feng quickly took control of Juzifu. Many mountain lords had returned. In a short time, before they knew the background of Qin Feng, the new mansion lord, these ambitious mountain lords would not act rashly. In the empty hall, after a simple meeting, there were only 4 people left in the hall. True Lord Tai Mu, True Lord Xian Yin, Zhang Han, and Chang Qin. The 3 of you, I'll have to trouble you for the time being. You'll be the deacons. The 3 sages looked at each other, and the most prestigious True Lord Xian Yin said with a smile, Mansion Lord, you're too polite. We didn't do anything, so the mansion deacon position is already the mansion lord's favor. The 3 sages of Liutu Peak were indeed satisfied. Juzifu originally had a complete system. It was already extremely difficult for ordinary people to come in. It was already a surprise to be able to get a deacon position. Normally, there were only 5 deacons under the mansion lord. Among them, there was 1 grand deacon. There was 1 left and 1 left deacon, followed by 2 ordinary deacons. In terms of honor, the most honorable was of course the grand deacon, who was the right-hand man of the palace lord. Next were the left and right deacons. The left and right deacons were in charge of all the affairs in the mansion, which was equivalent to the internal and external chief. The 2 ordinary deacons were in charge of the treasurer and military service. These were all important positions. When Qin Feng came to power, the first thing he did was to arrange his own people in each of the main departments. Among the group of people who followed him, True Lord Xian Yin was the left deacon. True Lord Tai Mu was the right deacon. Zhang Han was the treasurer and deacon. As the saying goes, before the troops and horses move, the provisions move first. The treasurer and deacon position was also a lucrative position. Chang Qin was in charge of military service, with 100,000 astral soldiers and astral generals under his command. Qin Feng divided them into 12 tunes, divided into 12 yuanchen, and ordered him to be in charge of one of the tiger's sacred merit tunes. That was the 12 yuanchen. Yinsheng was a tiger, merit chao yuanchen. Yinsheng was a rabbit, Taichong yuanchen. Yinsheng was a dragon, Tiangang yuanchen. Insheng was a snake, Yuanchen Insheng was a horse, Insheng was a sheep, Yuanchen Insheng was a monkey, transmission Yuanchen Insheng was chicken, Insheng Su Sheng was a dog, the river chief Yuan Chen. Hai Sheng is a pig, ascending the Yuanqing. Zi Sheng was born of the rat, and Shen Yuanchen was born after him. Ugly was born in the year of the ox, the auspicious Yuanchen. The 10 generals under his command were respectively titled as Zi Shu, Chou Niu, Mao Tu, Chen Long, Si Shi, Wu Ma, Wei Yang, Shun Ho, Yu Ji, and Su Go. Approximately 9,000 star soldiers and star generals were personally managed by Qin Feng for the remaining Pig Ascension song. In reality, these 12 star soldiers and star generals were not of much use to Qin Feng himself, but they were an indispensable fighting force to maintain the stability of Zhu Zifu. With the 12 star soldiers and star generals, the entire vermilion-purple mansion quickly operated, obeying orders and prohibitions. Everyone, our next task is to find the whereabouts of the 9 Pinnacles Mountain's mountain god, as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid we won't be able to maintain our positions. Qin Feng could not forget about the 9 Pinnacles Mountain's mountain god. With this evil god here, he, the lord of the vermilion-purple manor, could forget about having a good time. Lord, I'm afraid it won't be easy to find him? Immortal Sound frowned. No worries. Once this kind of evil god appears, there will be some signs. If he wants to recover his strength, he will definitely cause some commotion. We just have to keep an eye on the surrounding sacrificial rite. Eventually, we will be able to find this evil god. Qin Feng glanced at the people in the great hall as he smiled. Regardless of the evil god, there were only a few ways to recover his strength after awakening. The first was to rely on the treasures left behind by the ancient times. This was rare. Usually, only the most powerful evil gods or immemorial experts had this ability. Evil gods like the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God, who were not very powerful, obviously did not have this ability. Even if they did, they would have been taken away by the 5 Baron Emperor. The second way was to rely on killing to absorb the blood essence and souls of living beings as the initial source of nourishment. However, evil gods that were not driven to desperation would not do this. This would easily attract the attention of experts. One had to know that these evil gods were called God. Most of them had small deity positions or special powers. These powers could not only strengthen a martial artist, but also extend their lifespan and resist the 5 decay of heaven and man. This was a fat piece of meat. Those evil gods were smart enough not to do this. The remaining methods were limited. They could find a martial artist to act as a personal grandpa, the weapon spirit of an utmost treasure, or a mysterious system. This was an early investment and later income. It was a win-win situation. This was the most secretive and also one of the safest method. The old man that Qin Feng met with Qian Kai was such an existence. However, this had its risk. Like Qian Kai, once he had a change of heart, he would be in danger. The most common type was to create some small commotion, using the name of the ignorant countryside as a sacrifice. Like a spark of fire, they gradually recovered their strength step by step. Since the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God is an innate mountain god of heaven and earth, it's not hard to imagine his methods of recovering his strength. The first method is to raise faith and trick some people into offering sacrifices. The second method is to absorb the power of the earth veins. This is easy to find. Zhu Zifu's spiritual mountain is limited. Schoolmaster, I don't think that this evil god will choose these 2 methods. After pondering for a while, Zhang Han, who was dressed in a green robe, had a flash of wisdom in his eyes. He was dressed in a green robe and had a straight figure, just like Mr. Xiao Yao. Oh, senior brother Zhang, do you have any other ideas? Qin Feng smiled. In fact, he had already guessed what Zhang Han wanted to say. Zhang Han's eyes flashed with an inexplicable look. You flatter me. Schoolmaster, I think that we should be wary of the various commanderies and forces colluding with this evil god. Many of those empires and sects are dissatisfied with our sections. They can't wait for chaos to happen in the realm of stars so that they can take the opportunity to break away from the control of Xingqian school. Zhang Han had never been afraid to use the most malicious means to speculate about those countries and sects. Junior brother Zhang Han, you're saying that someone will support this evil god? Supreme Tai Mu's eyes flashed with coldness. Zhang Han's expression was solemn. As long as there are enough orbs of will, this evil god will be able to recover its strength and overcome its initial weakened state easily. Those ambitious commanderies, or even empires, and even some of the unorthodox forces, and even some of the mountain chieftains of my Zhuzifu, all have this motive. Qin Feng was the new school master of the Zhuzifu. Once there was a problem in his jurisdiction, the sect would obviously punish him first. Qin Feng, as the new schoolmaster, had an unstable position. Wouldn't he benefit from those mountain lords who were eyeing the position covetously? On the throne, Qin Feng pondered for a while and smiled. Fine, if that's the case, we'll take it one by one. Chang Qin, summon the rulers of the 8 commanderies to come to Mount Yunwu to see me. Yes. Chang Qin cupped his fists. True Sovereign Taimu, make a trip to the sect and help me check if there are any suspicious people in the surrounding 8 commanderies. Check if there have been any large-scale purchases of orbs of will recently. The evil god needs a lot of orbs of will to recover his strength. If they have any unusual movements, they will definitely leave behind some clues. Yes, Taimu. Qin Feng's gaze fell on Supreme Celestial Tune. Senior Sister Xianyin, please go to the sect and ask around. You can go to the Wind Trust Hall to purchase information on the 8 mountain chieftains under my command, as well as the surrounding manor heads. You can also use your resources to exchange with other well-informed senior and junior brothers. In short, all expenses will be borne by me. Chapter 771. After sending everyone away, the entire Zhuzifu quieted down. Qin Feng began to cultivate and consolidate his sun-god quasi-saint power. His foundation was extremely solid. As soon as he broke through to sun-god quasi-saint, his space laws had reached the pinnacle of the quasi-saint level. The heaven laws had been nurtured by the 2 ancestral trees for 100,000 years. Although the 2 ancestral trees walked the pure wood god Tao, the majestic heaven laws were not something ordinary people could withstand. Only a freak with a tyrannical foundation like Qin Feng would be able to withstand the impact of such a grand heaven-rank law. Qin Feng saw his innate yang god. The innate yang god was huge, with a layer of pure yang flame shrouding its body, making it look like a huge sun that was constantly emitting the light of Dharma laws. The layers of light fused into his body, constantly transforming his body, turning it into a sage to be. His entire being was like an invisible sun. In the eyes of martial artists below the sun-god quasi-saint level, Qin Feng was a blazing sun. From afar, even their souls would tremble, unable to withstand the pressure. It's a pity that I didn't get the yin-yang refining art. Otherwise, the day of yin-yang unification would be just around the corner. Qin Feng regretted killing Old Man Yin-yang. Back then, he had no choice but to kill Old Man Yin-yang because his battle with Saint Ancestor Yin-yang had reached a critical juncture. Qin Feng frowned. His foundation was too deep. What he cultivated was not an ordinary yang god, but an innate yang god. This increased the difficulty of yin-yang unification. However, there is an opportunity in front of me. The Mountain God Authority is different from the Star Lord Authority and the ordinary Evil God Authority. According to ancient legends, the Mountain God is also a type of yin-yang god. The Mountain God minor deity position contains a portion of the yin-yang authority. It can communicate with the yin and yang in the unseen world and steal souls. Qin Feng opened his eyes and tapped his fingers rhythmically on the table's armrest. He thought to himself, compared to the yin-yang refinement art, the mountain god's authority is much more reassuring. If I can use the mountain god's authority to understand the creation of yin and yang, and comprehend the true essence of yin and yang, then fuse yin and yang together to form an origin spirit. Perhaps it will only take a single thought. However, I'm afraid I'm not the only one coveting the mountain god's authority. The patriarchs of the commandery and some experts from the sects are also eyeing it. Qin Feng's eyes revealed a trace of coldness. Although the minor deity position was not a true deity position, it did not mean that it was not precious. On the contrary, his value was enough to make a supreme martial artist break their heads. After a martial Dao expert became a mighty figure, he would have to go through 9 major tribulations. The first 4 times were in the chaos elemental plane. Behind them were the 5 decays of the celestial being. 9 great tribulations. It could be said that every great tribulation was filled with corpses. Qin Feng was able to go through 3 tribulations in a very short period of time because of the accumulation of his previous life. However, even Qin Feng did not have much confidence in dealing with the 5 decay of the celestial being. Every time there was a slim chance of survival. When a martial Dao expert cultivated to this stage, their greatest enemy was no longer external enemies, but the 9 heavenly tribulations. 49 out of 50 heavenly Daos, there was a chance of survival. The martial Dao flourished and reached the later stages. It also developed many incredible tribulation-transcending secret technique. Qin Feng himself knew some tribulation-transcending secret technique. However, these tribulation-transcending secret techniques required some extremely harsh conditions to be used. For example, the Heaven and Earth Merit Banner used to transcend the 5 decay of the celestial being. The Heaven and Earth Merit Banner was refined from the extremely rare Heaven and Earth Merit Chi. Another example was the Fortune Spirit Condensing Ring in Qin Feng's mind that could repel evil tribulations and resist the power of the celestial being's exhaustion. In order to refine this treasure, rare Fortune Chi was required. Fortune Chi was a kind of 9 heavens green Chi, and it was only born in some special divine wood of the world. In Qin Feng's eyes, the mountain god's position was a tribulation-transcending item that was far better than any of these treasures. The authority of heaven and earth was blessed by the mountains and rivers of heaven and earth, and it was blessed by the heavens. There was a saying that heaven and earth were of the same force. With this kind of merit and heavenly blessing, misfortune could be turned into prosperity. Even if the celestial being's decay descended, it would be much lighter than ordinary people and could withstand a stronger tribulation. His eyes flickered, and a trace of the power of laws appeared in his palm like a red flame. The void fluctuated to the extreme. This was the heavenly realm's law. The heavenly realm's law power carried a trace of yang, as if it was indestructible. At this moment, a layer of dark blue flames appeared on his other hand, and an illusory power was born from the void. This was the void law. The void law burned on his left hand, as if it was a world of nothingness. Qin Feng moved his hand, and 2 laws, one red and one blue, chased each other in the void like a long dragon, gradually turning into a red and blue Taiji diagram. Like 2 fish, they were clearly separated and faintly fused with each other, playing with each other, evolving into a huge void continent, splitting heaven and earth, dividing the primordial chaos. Qin Feng had already touched the saint realm of creating a world with a thought. It was a pity that although the 2 laws of yin and yang could be fused, they could not be combined into one. Although the void continent was huge and boundless, it was like a real paradise. In fact, it was true that the 2 laws of yin and yang were clearly separated, and a saint could see it clearly. However, this also proved that Qin Feng had indeed gone further than ordinary sage to be, and had already touched the threshold of the saint realm. Cloud Mist Mountain, in a derived dimensional space, where birds chirped and flowers bloomed, and the sun shone brightly. Senior Brotherly, are you just going to sit and watch him grow? A black-robed young man had an ugly expression, and his eyes were filled with anger and unwillingness. Junior Brother Kong Song, what else do you want to do? The voice of the great Deacon Li Ruoshan sounded. Kong Song gritted his teeth. Of course, I'll join forces with the other mountain lords and banish that kid. On the side, Zhuang Jianfeng, Wei Ling, and Zhou Bing's faces were also filled with unwillingness, anger, and eagerness. The four of them hoped that Li Ruoshan could stand up and fight against Qin Feng. Li Ruoshan shook his head. Everyone, you'd better find someone else. How can I be chosen by all of you? Li Ruoshan sneered in his heart. The four of them wanted him to be the leader, and the others to follow. How could there be such an easy thing? He had also heard about Qin Feng these days. This person was a true killing genius, and he had relied on his excellent military achievements to get to where he was. This person was decisive in killing, and he had many friends in the sect. It was rumored that he was related to Jiaolan, one of the 9 true disciples. He was not stupid. Whether this matter succeeded or not, he had to be the scapegoat. Moreover, Qin Feng's rise to power did not affect his interests. The 4 deacons were all easy jobs. Although the 4 of them were still deacons, the entire Zhuzifu knew that they were temporarily marginalized. Although they were called deacons, in reality they were only deacons in name. However, if it were me, I might not be able to sit still. Although deacons are called deacons, they are actually the replacements of the mountain lords. Now that Qin Feng is wholeheartedly appointing his trusted subordinates, I'm afraid that even if the mountain lord position is vacant, it won't have anything to do with us. Li Ruoshan was not without doubts, but he would not take the lead to fight against Qin Feng. Wait, there should be 2 more before 10 o'clock. Chapter 772. Old Fox. The 4 deacons cursed in their hearts. At the same time, they also felt helpless. They were the trusted aides of the previous Vermilion Purple Manor Lord. They had a great chance of becoming the lords of a territory and becoming the lords of a mountain. Now, Lan Yun Grand Sage had failed his 3rd Heaven's Blight and died, leaving behind a mess. They did not even have time to plan before the sect announced the appointment. Zhou Bing said with a smile, Senior Brotherly, this matter has to be done by you. You're the Grand Deacon of the Vermilion Purple Mansion, and you're the most senior among us. Moreover, many of the 8 mountain lords had your help before. There's no need to say any more. Li Ruoshan shook his head. With a flash, Li Ruoshan's figure disappeared from where he stood. After Li Ruoshan left, the 4 deacons' faces darkened. What should we do? That old fox is too cowardly. Kong Song's face was gloomy. Suddenly, he turned around and looked at Wei Ling. Wei Ling, did you get in touch with Junior Brother Yiding? What did Junior Brother Yiding say? Wei Ling smiled faintly, having a card up his sleeve. You don't have to worry. Junior Brother Yiding expected Li Ruoshan to be so cowardly. Yiding has already sent people to contact the 8 mountain lords, and a few of them have already expressed their opinions. Now, we're only missing an opportunity? Zhou Bing's eyes lit up. Opportunity? What opportunity? The time to make Qin Feng fall. Wei Ling's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. However, it'll be soon. Hearing this, Zhuang Jianfeng, Kong Song, and Zhou Bing looked at each other and smiled. It seems like we'll be able to get rid of this big problem soon. Junior Brother Yiding is indeed that person's adopted son. As expected, a tiger won't have a dog's son. Let's toast to our upcoming victory. The 4 of them laughed in unison. However, the 4 of them did not know that a wisp of demonic chi flashed in the depths of their souls. On the throne in the main hall, Qin Feng suddenly opened his eyes, and the coldness in his eyes quickly disappeared. Yiding, are you going to take my life? This Yiding is really like a ghost that won't go away. Unfortunately, Yiding, you never imagined that I'm skilled in heart demon techniques. Every single action of these people is utterly unable to deceive me. Qin Feng's patience with Yi Ding had already reached its limit. Qin Feng's patience with Yi Ding had reached its limit. Fine, it just so happens that the Willow Earth 3 saints have followed me for thousands of miles. I still owe each of them a mountain lord position. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. Qin Feng continued to close his eyes and comprehend the laws. He was striving to fuse with his son and soul and become a saint as soon as possible. One day later, the sound of light footsteps could be heard from outside the main hall, entering the main hall from the outside. Manor Head, the King of Yen Kingdom and Princess Changping have arrived. The Yen Kingdom. I didn't expect the first king to be from the Yen Kingdom. Qin Feng was slightly surprised. The Yen Kingdom was not the closest kingdom to Mount Yunwu among the 8 kingdoms. On the contrary, it was relatively remote. The closest nation was naturally Zhuzigua. Zhuzigua's jade capital was only half a day's journey away from Mount Yunwu. If the king of Zhuzigua wanted to, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with coldness. Let them in. At the foot of Mount Yunwu, a group of people could be seen walking along the stairs of the mountain path. The people in front were dressed honorably, while the people behind were carrying a lot of things. The animals used to carry the things were taken to a special place by the people of Mount Yunwu. This is Mount Yunwu? What rich spiritual energy! It's even more abundant than the spiritual energy of Mount Qinluo of our great Yen Kingdom. Yes, there are so many martial arts experts. Don't you see that any random astral soldier is above the Meridian's realm? Any one of them is stronger than the elite disciples of millennium-old families. Is this Xingqian school? There was a burst of whispers and discussions. A group of beautiful young girls looked around, their eyes filled with amazement. The current king of Yen was not in the mood to pay attention to these young girls. His gaze fell on a young girl dressed in men's clothing beside him. Her face was as beautiful as peach blossoms. Pingxia, according to what you said, this new manor head is from the Yen Kingdom. He's from the same generation as you. How is your relationship? A trace of redness appeared on Du Pingxia's fair face. Of course, the intelligent young girl knew her father well. Father, Qin Feng is not the kind of person you think he is? Du Pingxia smiled bitterly to herself. What kind of person? Who doesn't love beauties when he's young? Father was like that when he was young. I don't believe that Qin Feng has never fallen in love with my precious daughter. The king of Yen was smug. Du Pingxia shook her head secretly. If an ordinary 15 or 16-year-old boy was really like what her father said, Du Pingxia had seen Qin Feng before. However, Du Pingxia had seen Qin Feng before. Not only did she know Qin Feng like the back of her hand, she also knew him better than the average person. She glanced at the group of sisters behind her. These were all beauties chosen by the king of Yen from various families. A trace of helplessness appeared in her eyes. Without any announcement, the group of people arrived in front of the main hall. The group of beauties was led to the side hall. No one dared to be negligent. The maidservants inside were all gifted to the hall master. The disciples of Xingqian school had their own rules. They were not allowed to defile women. Even the disciples of Xingqian school, who specialized in the Tao of Yin and Yang, could only marry officially. If every cultivator wanted more, with their abilities, the women in the secular world would not be enough for them to defile. Then the secular world would be in chaos. This was destroying their own foundation. These women in front of them were gifted to the manor head by various countries. This was already an established rule. If the manor head took a fancy to them and took them as his concubines, the motherland would also share in the glory. They might even gain a lot of benefits. In the main hall, the Grand Deacon and the others stood on the left and right. The king of Yen and his daughter did not dare to look up. They lowered their heads and walked to their seat. They immediately put down the heavy box and knelt down. Du Xing, the monarch of the Yen Kingdom, greets the manor head. Du Pingxia, an outer sect disciple of Xingqian school, greets senior brother. Qin Feng, who was sitting high above, glanced at the King of Yen. The King of Yen was over 5 years old. However, he still looked like a middle-aged man and was extremely dignified. His strength was not high. He was only in the Meridian's condensation realm. King of Yen, you're too polite. There's no need to be so distant. Speaking of which, your daughter and I were schoolmates. If it wasn't for your daughter's help back then, Qin Feng might not be here today. The King of Yen was stunned. He glanced at his daughter beside him, and his eyes lit up. Come, give him a seat. Hearing this, the palace attendant standing at the side immediately brought over a seat. Thank you, Manor Head. The King of Yen was also a person who knew how to show his wealth. He took out a jade box and presented it. Manor Head, this is a token of appreciation from the Yen Kingdom. I hope you can accept it. To be honest, the Yen Kingdom's royal family was just so in Qin Feng's eyes. Qin Feng did not believe that the Yen Kingdom could take out any treasures. He nodded at Li Ruoshan. Li Ruoshan immediately took the box and went to the side. Chapter 773. Qin Feng did not have much in common with the Yen Kingdom. The Yen Kingdom was only one of the 7 vassal states under Zhuzifu. However, since the Yen Kingdom was the first to come, Qin Feng naturally had to make a gesture. In the evening, the Yen King stepped out of the main hall with satisfaction. That night, Qin Feng took out many spiritual fruits and spiritual water that had miraculous effects on prolonging one's life to entertain the Yen King. Moon-gazing cliff. This was one of the famous scenic spots on Yunwu Mountain. On Moon-gazing cliff, no matter how thick the night clouds were, one could still see the moonlight. Under the intense radiance of the moon, an ancient moon appeared right in front of him. Under the moonlight, the night wind blew and 2 slender shadows were elongated. Junior brother Qin Feng, I didn't expect you to have such a huge foundation in just 1 year. Du Pingxiao was still dressed as a man. Her white jade face was under the moonlight. Qin Feng took a closer look. He didn't know why, but there was a trace of rare charm. Qin Feng was slightly stunned. The girl could not help but lower her head under his gaze. Du Pingxiao was a little flustered. She did not know when she suddenly felt that the black-clothed young man's gaze was so hot, as if she was naked in front of him. In the past, if other people looked at her with such a gaze, she would feel annoyed and disgusted. However, facing the black-clothed young man in front of her, her heart beat faster, and an inexplicable feeling welled up in her heart. There was a kind of pride. Cough! Qin Feng suddenly reacted and a trace of embarrassment appeared on his face. Oh right, junior sister, I don't know how you have been since we parted at the Azure Dragon School. I saw that the spirit meridian in your body was like a 7-colored light. If I'm not wrong, you should be condensing the star magnetic spirit meridian. The star magnetic spirit meridian was one of the high-grade spirit meridians. The star magnetic force was abnormally strong, and it was no small matter when combined with the power of the stars. Ordinary weapons would be easily restrained once they came into contact with the star magnetic true force. Senior Marshall Brothers' vision is like a torch. I was lucky enough to obtain a magnetic star spirit pearl, which allowed me to cultivate the magnetic power of the origin star. The girl had red lips and white teeth. She was tall and slender. Although she was dressed in men's clothing, her figure seemed to blend perfectly with her temperament. She had a unique charm and a natural air of nobility. She had a unique attractiveness. Qin Feng didn't know why, but he thought of her other women. By the way, senior brother, I heard that you went to the savage battlefield after becoming a true disciple. I've always heard that it was the place where Xingqian school fought with other forces. What kind of place is that? Where? Qin Feng came back to his senses and pondered for a moment. Qin Feng said, Where is the paradise of the strong? It's hell for the weak. He thought of the countless demon cities that he had destroyed with his own hands. The images of the many living beings in those demon cities still appeared before his eyes. Countless demon experts had been reduced to ashes along with the cities. Prosperity, laughter, and seeking personal gain were all reduced to ashes under the crushing of power. Qin Feng didn't know whether those demon experts were innocent or not. But he knew that there was no right or wrong on the battlefield, only life and death. Du Pingxia could see mountains of corpses and seas of blood in Qin Feng's eyes. Countless experts had been reduced to ashes under the strangulation, and thousands of years of cultivation had been destroyed in an instant. This kind of cold impact made Du Pingxia's heart tremble, but more importantly, it strengthened the heart of an expert. That place is also a good place, Qin Feng suddenly said. At least there, you will truly understand the true meaning of martial arts. Wealth and worldly affairs were the easiest things to wear down one's martial will. The cultivation of one's mind was also very important for martial arts experts. Whether it was the decay of the soul in the 5 decay of the celestial being or the time severing the worldly affairs in the supreme tribulation, they all had extremely high requirements for martial arts experts' minds. In the spirit sea realm, there was no lack of wonderful cultivation methods for cultivating one's mind. Du Pingxia nodded and suddenly smiled. Senior brother Qin Feng, father has brought many beauties today, but you don't seem to like any of them? They are all noble ladies of the Yen kingdom, and in terms of looks, they are 1 in 1,000. The beauty smiled, and her eyes moved with a rare charm. Even Qin Feng couldn't help but feel comfortable. How could the beauty of the moon compare to 1 in 10,000 of the beauty in front of him? They are just some canaries. If I, Qin Feng, want to find a woman, even if it is a maid, not an ordinary woman can be. Du Pingxia laughed. If those noble ladies hear senior brother Qin Feng's evaluation, I'm afraid they will die of embarrassment. But Du Pingxia understood. When one's cultivation reached Qin Feng's level, what he saw was not a short 100 years, but an eternity. Even if a martial artist of this level wanted to find a partner, at least it would be a martial artist of the same level. Otherwise, after 100 years, no ordinary person could bear the sadness of seeing their partner's bones wither away. Du Pingxia, senior brother, what do you think of Pingxia? You? Qin Feng was shocked. Junior sister, why do you say that? Du Pingxia took off the crown on her head. The night wind blew, and her fine black hair fluttered like a waterfall. Under the moonlight, that astonishing beauty almost made Qin Feng unable to help but be stunned for a few moments. Qin Feng had never thought that the girl in front of him, who had always dressed as a man, would be so bright and moving. Her face was so beautiful that it was suffocating, and no one dared to look at her directly. Coupled with such a body, there were very few people in the world who could resist. Under the moonlight, she was like a noble and indescribable goddess. Senior brother, I don't know you very well, but I have some understanding of you. You are a cultivation maniac. According to what I know, even if you created such a huge foundation in Cloud Lake City, you handed it all to Yu Yao to manage. I was born in the royal family, and although I may not be as talented as Sister Yu Yao, I have some experience in managing the secular world. After saying that, the girl bowed slightly. Qin Feng frowned. Junior sister, why do you have to be like this? Just as you said, although we don't know each other that well, I have some understanding of your aspirations. Since you were young, your heart doesn't belong to a man, and you have never wanted to rely on a man. You are determined to pursue the martial path, so why are you doing this? Qin Feng really didn't understand the girl's thoughts. If the girl said that she admired him, he would never believe it. If it was an ordinary girl, it might be possible, but it was completely impossible for Du Pingxia. This girl's determination far exceeded her peers, and her willpower was one of the best among the girls in All Stars College. She definitely wouldn't be like other girls who fell in love at first sight. Senior brother, I don't have any other choice. Du Pingxia gritted her teeth, and a trace of stubbornness flashed in her beautiful eyes. being senior brother's maid might be the best choice. She bent her knees and knelt down. I hope senior brother will agree. However, in an instant a force stopped her. Qin Feng looked at Du Pingxia, who was close by. It was undeniable that such a great beauty like Du Pingxia had delivered herself to his door, and it was really hard to resist. Chapter 774. However, for the current Qin Feng, he was no longer at the lowest level of appreciation. In his opinion, the most beautiful thing about a woman was her spiritual beauty. The spirituality was wiped out, the infinite possibilities were removed, and only the submissive canary was left. In Qin Feng's opinion, it had no value at all. After pondering for a while, Qin Feng raised his head and looked at the beautiful girl in front of him. Can you tell me the reason? Du Pingxiao obviously encountered some irresistible problem. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made the decision to submit herself to him as a maid. Senior brother Qin Feng, am I not beautiful? Du Pingxia didn't answer Qin Feng's question. The girl tucked her hair behind her ears. Her face was so beautiful that no one dared to look at it directly. Her body was soft and her temperament was noble. Junior sister, this level of temptation is useless to me. Do you know that I have met the experts of the Yin-Yang sect? In terms of the art of seduction, junior sister, you are far inferior to them. Allowing those strands of mischievous black hair to brush past his face, the allure emitted by the girl's bent body seemed to have suddenly increased by 100-fold. However, Qin Feng's heart was like a tranquil lake without the slightest ripple. Senior brother, did your heart really not beat? The girl stretched out a slender hand and put it close to Qin Feng's chest. The girl's face was charming and close, with a little intoxicating tenderness. Thump, thump, thump. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. His divine sense felt a violent heartbeat in his ears, like a drum. The beautiful girl's face was red, but in fact she was very nervous. Qin Feng couldn't help but laugh. Suddenly, a hand hugged the girl's slender waist, and a face suddenly came close. The girl screamed and slipped out of the warm embrace like a fish. Du Pingxia's chest heaved up and down. Her pretty face blushed. She glanced at Qin Feng in an extremely charming manner. Senior brother, you are a real gentleman. A real gentleman? Qin Feng stared blankly for a moment before bursting into laughter. He wasn't a true gentleman, and it was only because the girl was his good friend. As the saying goes, rabbits don't eat the grass near their burrows. If it was an unfamiliar woman, perhaps she would have already eaten her fill. Qin Feng smiled faintly. Tell me, what's going on? Du Pingxia's expression was calm. It's just some dirty deals. Don't sully senior brother's ears. A deal? Qin Feng's expression changed. He glanced at the beautiful girl and then understood. Female sect disciples, especially female disciples, would always encounter such a predicament if they did not have a backer. It was common knowledge that the more outstanding a female powerhouse was, the purer and more majestic the Yin essence within her body would be. This extremely pure Yin essence was no different from a miraculous elixir for breaking through to the next realm for a dancing powerhouse. Although it was despicable to pluck Yin to replenish Yang, in front of Chongqing, it was enough to make people cross the bottom line. Moreover, the girl in front of him was so beautiful. Although the Du family of the country of Yen was the ruler of a country and had some power, it was nothing in front of some of the old antiques in the sect. Thinking about it, the Du family would not go head-on against those experts in the sect for a mere princess. If that's the case, then you can stay in Zhuzi Mansion. I don't dare to say anything else, but in this small piece of land, no one can touch you, no matter who it is. Du Pingxia nodded. Her beautiful eyes revealed a trace of relief. Instead of benefiting those old antiques who had not appeared for hundreds of years, it was better to benefit Qin Feng. Qin Feng glanced at the girl and said, However, although you are a maid, you don't have to serve me in bed. Help me take care of the affairs of Zhuzi Mansion. You're right, I really don't like those messy political affairs. With a smile, Qin Feng's figure flashed and disappeared from the full moon cliff. Du Pingxiao was slightly dazed. Gratitude flashed in her beautiful eyes. After a while, she said faintly, Senior brother Qin Feng, Du Pingxiao will return this favor to you, perhaps with the Yan kingdom taking the lead, the remaining 7 kingdoms, the Jin kingdom, the Dalong kingdom, the Baoyu kingdom, and the other kingdoms' kings all rushed to Mount Yunwu for an audience. Finally, the current king of Zhuzi country also personally came to Mount Yunwu. Speaking of which, the royal family of Zhuzi country also had a grudge with Qin Feng. Ao Feng and Ao Kuan, the 2 most outstanding princes of this generation of Zhuzi country, had suffered in the hands of Qin Feng. Especially Ao Kuan, who was known as the Wolf King, had died in Qin Feng's hands. The king of Zhuzi country was a valiant-looking middle-aged man. Compared to the Yan kingdom's King Yan, he was much stronger. He was in the miraculous Void Realm. He was already at the half-step Sea-Wheel Realm. This was already comparable to the old ancestors of some small clans. Most of the kings weren't strong. In fact, although the king of a kingdom was incomparably glorious, in reality, he had to deal with countless government affairs. As a king, no matter how talented he was destined to not have high achievements. When this king had an audience with Qin Feng, he was cautious and conscientious. He was meticulous and brought many generous gifts, fearing that Qin Feng would settle the score with him later. In reality, Qin Feng didn't have the intention to settle the score with them. In the eyes of the current Qin Feng, the royal family of Zhuzi country was merely a slightly bigger ant. They didn't pose any threat at all. However, out of caution, Qin Feng planted an inner demon in each of these kings. As expected, after planting this inner demon, Qin Feng discovered many clues. Among the 7 kings, no one had a clean background. However, it didn't matter. However, the 5 nations of Jin, Yan, Blackwater, Daong, and Great Kong were still fine. As for the other 3 nations, Zhuzi, Dalong, and Baoyu, they were a little daring. Not only did they secretly set up private sacrificial ceremonies, but they also showed signs of purchasing many orbs of will recently. According to the information Qin Feng obtained from the memories of the kings of Zhuzi, Dalong, and Baoyu, they're very daring. Qin Feng didn't act immediately. He increased his surveillance of the 3 nations and secretly ordered Chang Qin to keep an eye on them. However, Qin Feng didn't think that these 3 nations would help the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God. Qin Feng analyzed these traces and concluded that these 3 nations were most likely a smokescreen. The one secretly helping the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God should be another mastermind in the dark. The reason was simple. Although these 3 nations were being subtle, they couldn't hide from Xingqian's school. It was more like they were stalling for time and covering for him. Who are they covering for? Qin Feng guessed in his heart that it might be the 8 mountain lords, or it might be some other power. It shouldn't be Yi Ding. Although Yi Ding can't wait to kill me, he's extremely greedy. If he met the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God, he would most likely kill him immediately instead of asking a tiger for its skin. If the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God wants to revive, there shouldn't be any other way. Other than the royal families of the 8 nations and the 8 mountain lords, there shouldn't be anyone in Zhuzi Prefecture who has the ability to help him revive. Qin Feng suddenly remembered that he seemed to have missed out on someone. Chapter 775. A day later, True Lord Tai Mu and True Lord Immortal Toon returned one after another. True Lord Immortal Toon said, Manor Head, the background of the 8 mountain chieftains has been investigated. These 8 mountain chieftains come from 28 different peaks. However, only Baoyu Nation's Cold Spring Mountain Chieftain, Sky Kuei Sage, and Dalong Nation's Chui Ping Mountain Chieftain, Thunder Emperor True Lord, are true disciples. Among them, Sky Kuei Sage is from Kong Gold Peak, and Thunder Emperor True Lord is from Heaven's Punishment Hall. On the throne, Qin Feng's eyes flickered. Also, according to the information purchased by Wind Trust Hall, many mountain chieftains and cave masters in Zhuzifu have connections with the surrounding Xianping Manor and Jinbo Manor. True Lord Immortal Toon looked at Qin Feng. She hoped that Qin Feng could use this opportunity to eliminate all these mountain chieftains and cave masters. After returning to Lu Tufeng, she received many messages from Lu Tufeng's senior and junior brothers, hoping to borrow her to become an official. Although the positions of palace chieftain and cave master did not seem high, they were in high demand. Currently, there were still many experts idling in the sect. Martial arts cultivators needed a lot of resources. The sect was not a place to keep idlers. If one stayed in the sect, their cultivation speed would be limited. Unfortunately, although the domain of stars was huge, it could not withstand the number of disciples in the sect. It could be said that there was more work than porridge. Many people yearned for the positions of temple master, palace chieftain, cave master, and mountain chieftain. She was able to find the opportunity to enter Zhuzifu and become a manor deacon. Many of her fellow disciples in Willow Earth Peak were envious. A manor deacon seemed simple, but in reality, it was the manor head's confidant, a future mountain chieftain. Once a mountain chieftain was in trouble, as a deacon, it was very likely that she would replace him. The position of mountain chieftain. A temple master controlled a town. A small town had a few thousand people, and a large town had 10,000 people. If they prayed for a year, they would be able to obtain at least 100 low-grade orbs of will. Above the temple master was the palace chieftain. A palace chieftain controlled a county like Mountain River City, and had more than 10 strategic towns under him. A palace chieftain could gather at least 2,000 low-grade orbs of will in a year. Above the palace chieftain was the cave master. The cave masters were in charge of the prefectures, so the amount of jewel of will they could gather was at least 10 times more than the palace lords. In some of the more prosperous prefectures, they could even gather 20 or 30 times more. That was an enormous amount of wealth. 40,000, 60,000 low-grade orbs of will. Even if it was converted into high-grade orbs of will, it would still be around 400 to 600. According to the rules, even though the cave master could only take 10%, it was still a considerable amount of wealth. One had to know that this wish power bead contained the essence of the wish power. It was a miraculous item that could sublimate the souls of countless living beings. It was the best tonic for a secret realm. But with this wish bead, the mystic realm would grow rapidly. If an ordinary martial arts magnate were to maintain a secret realm by himself, it would probably take him hundreds of years to stabilize the secret realm and get rid of his status as a stay-at-home dad. However, if he had the pearls of will, as long as he fed it one every month, the secret realm would be able to stabilize on its own. If he fed it thousands of pearls in one go, he would probably be able to get rid of his status as a stay-at-home dad in just a few years and upgrade the newborn secret realm to a small-scale secret realm. If he had more willpower beads, he would be able to advance faster in the secret realm. A single high-grade orb of will was enough to stabilize a newly advanced secret realm for a year. Some experts had done research. 100 to 200 high-grade orbs of will was enough for a newly advanced secret realm to be upgraded to a small-scale secret realm within a year. Even a cave master could get such benefits. A mountain chieftain was even more impressive. The amount of high-grade orbs of will they could purchase in a year was at least 4,000 high-grade orbs of will. The mountain chieftains of some large countries, such as Zhuzi country and other mid-grade commanderies, at least 20,000 high-grade orbs of will and above. According to the rules, even if he could only take 20%, it was still impressive. 4,000 high-grade orbs of will. One had to know that a 1,000-year-old spirit herb was only worth one high-grade orb of will in the spirit treasure sect. The manor heads and hall masters above them were even more profitable. The orb of will was a good thing. It was not only the currency of the spirit sea realm. It also had an irreplaceable effect on martial artists. A secret realm, the growth of a paradise. Even if it was cultivating mystical abilities or refining true weapons, the orb of will could be used. Even martial experts could directly use secret techniques to refine the orb of will and improve the quality of their true power. Announcing Peace Manor and Golden Wave Manor had a conflict with Zhuzi Manor when the previous manor head of Zhuzi Manor, the great sage Lan Yun, was still in power. Junior brother manor head, you might not know, but Zhuzi Manor was originally a famous manor. There were a total of 12 mountain chieftains. 4 of the mountain chieftains left Zhuzi Manor after the fall of the great sage Lan Yun and joined these 2 manors. What? Qin Feng frowned. 4 countries, 4 mountain chieftains. This was close to 20,000 high-grade orbs of will. This was cutting off Qin Feng's flesh. Seeing Qin Feng's expression, Supreme Immortal Sound explained. In the original Zhuzi Manor, other than the current 8 countries, there were Frigid Ice Nation, Shanghai Nation, Qingping Nation, and Black Mountain Nation. Now that Frigid Ice Nation and Qingping Nation were taken over by Announcing Peace Manor, Shanghai Nation and Black Mountain Nation joined Golden Wave Manor. The 2 manors went from 10 countries to 12 countries, and 13 countries to 15 countries. Their power increased by a lot. 4 countries, Qin Feng snorted coldly, a hint of coldness faintly discernible in his eyes. With such a huge benefit, there was no way he would swallow such a grievance. True Lord Celestial Sound and True Lord Iron Scene exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with eagerness. Now, the sages of Willow Earth Peak wanted nothing more than chaos. If possible, they wanted Qin Feng to start a war with the 2 manors immediately. It would be best if they could seize a few more mountains. The position of mountain chieftain was not enough. All the sages of Willow Earth Peak coveted it. After Supreme Immortal Sound finished her report, Supreme Tai Mu walked up. Junior brother manor head, you asked me to investigate the 8 countries, and I found many suspicious places. According to the records of the Sex Contribution Hall, among the 8 countries, Baoyu Nation, Dalong Nation, and Zhuzi Nation all had traces of purchasing orbs of will. In addition, these 3 nations also have the phenomenon of evil cults of lust, worshipping some unknown demons and evil gods. Supreme Tai Mu's face revealed a hint of coldness. Evil gods, evil spirits, and demons were the source of chaos. No matter which type of cult was worshipped, once a cult was formed, it would cause an extremely negative impact on the collection of orbs of will. This was destroying the livelihood of Xingqian school. In my opinion, the royal families of the 3 nations are very suspicious. I suspect that they are colluding with the evil god 9 Cauldrons. Qin Feng nodded. Senior brother Tai Mu, I will give you a troop. These evil cults of lust must not be left alive. Kill all the martial experts of the clans involved. Also, keep an eye on the experts of the royal families of the 3 nations. If there are any strange movements, I will allow you to act at your discretion. Yes. Supreme Tai Mu revealed a hint of murderous intent between his brows. Supreme Immortal Sound frowned and looked at Qin Feng, who was on the throne. Junior brother, are you not going to do it yourself? Me? On the throne, Qin Feng smiled gently and looked at the 2 sages in front of the hall. His eyes flashed with a hint of profoundness as he spoke. I am going to deal with an even more cunning fox. The high school next door has blown the lights out signal, so it's a little late working overtime on Sunday. I still need to take leave and rest early so that I can finish early tomorrow. Chapter 776. Under the shocked gazes of Lu Tufeng and the other sages, Qin Feng's figure flashed and silently disappeared from the main hall. The master's cultivation has improved again. Yeah, he seems to have broken through to the pre-saint realm. Space elemental quasi-saint almighty beings possess abilities that far surpass us. The three sages sighed. In the depths of Mount Yunwu, Qin Feng tore through the void and locked onto a figure. This figure sat cross-legged on a high-pressure area, absorbing the power of the sun. Countless flames surrounded him, making him look like a huge sun. Great Deacon Li Ruoshan. Qin Feng's gaze was fixed. Following an invisible connection, he seemed to see another hidden figure in the depths of the endless void. The second sun god. If I hadn't broken through to the sun god realm and could use the demonic heart technique on a sun god realm presaint, I might have been fooled by you. His figure flashed and silently tore through the void, disappearing from Mount Yunwu. On Mount Tsang, Li Ruoshan's black and red robes fluttered. Two rays of divine light dozens of feet long illuminated the void, like two golden suns. Xingqian School's true martial-level eye technique, sun golden eyes, illuminating the 9 underworlds. No one? Li Ruoshan thought to himself. Could it be that my senses were wrong, and no one was spying on me? Impossible, I'm a sun god realm presaint. My instincts can't be wrong. Looks like that bastard is starting to suspect me. Li Ruoshan closed his eyes and laughed coldly in his heart. Unfortunately, it's too late. That 9 Pinnacles mountain god should have gotten the 10,000 high-grade orbs of will soon. With this batch of high-grade orbs of will, he should be able to recover at least half of his vitality. Li Ruoshan's face revealed a smug smile. He probably didn't expect that he was the one who resurrected the 9 Pinnacles mountain god. Qin Feng, you can't blame me. The Zhuzifu Prefecture master position was given by me, Li Ruoshan. It wasn't easy to kill that idiot Lan Yun, but you were the one who jumped out. I had to work harder to kill you. Thinking of Qin Feng, Li Ruoshan's heart burned with resentment and hatred. He finally found an opportunity to work with the 9 Pinnacles mountain god to kill Lan Yun. He had already made preparations to use his connections in the sect and give up the position as prefecture master. At the very least, he could get the position of a mountain lord. But Qin Feng's appearance ruined the plan. I'm not asking for much. I just want the position of a mountain lord. Since you've ruined my future, don't blame me for being ruthless. Li Ruoshan's eyes. What a pity. His heart was filled with rage. As early as a few years ago, he had already established a relationship with a certain big shot in the sect and made all the necessary preparations. Who would have thought that the plan would not be able to keep up with the changes? However, it doesn't matter. I can still wait. Lord 9 Cauldrons has already promised me that as long as he can recover his cultivation, he will definitely be able to help me get rid of Qin Feng this time. My agreement with that martial uncle still counts. Tearing the void apart, Qin Feng locked onto a crow. It was just an ordinary crow, and it looked very ordinary. It spread its wings and flew among the ancient trees in the forest. Qin Feng is in the void, but he has locked onto this crow. This was a young variant with the bloodline of the 3-legged golden crow. In Qin Feng's perception, the other party's bloodline was concealed, just like an ordinary bird. I didn't expect Li Ruoshan to be so lucky to be able to refine a 3-legged golden crow with such a strong bloodline. He could even refine it into a second life. If I didn't plant the inner demon in his body and catch the power of the inner demon, I might not have been able to see his secret. With a flash, Qin Feng came out from the depths of the void dimension and appeared below the forest. He smiled and glanced at the black-feathered crow. Li Lin's body flashed and blended into the void like a breeze. He followed the black-feathered crow quietly. The black-feathered crow was extremely vigilant. It circled the forest a few times and didn't sense anything unusual. It flew along one of the branches of the Cloud Mist Mountain. 2 days later, Qin Feng looked at the familiar terrain in front of him. His expression was strange. Unknowingly, he had arrived at the periphery of the little barbaric mountain. Yes, this was Qin Feng's hometown. the little barbaric mountain behind the Chiang mountain range in the upper river town. There used to be an ancient ruin called the Six Cauldrons ancient temple here. In the ruin, Qin Feng obtained the Xuanwu divine pill and the Xuanwu yin-yang fist art that he relied on to rise. Qin Feng had played hide-and-seek with the Qin family for a few days here. He had severely damaged the Qin family in the upper river town, causing them to be unable to recover. The terrain here was similar. It was called the Little Barbaric Wasteland. There were many strange things here. Although the central part was not as vast as the real barbaric wasteland, it was not smaller than the land of a country. In the eyes of many experts in the Shanha city and the great Yen kingdom, it was an absolute taboo. The spiritual qi here is abundant. Rumor has it that there are many strange things in the little barbaric wasteland. Now it seems that it might be the lair of the 9 Cauldrons mountain god. Qin Feng's figure appeared on top of a big tree. This was already the depths of the little barbaric wasteland. There were ancient trees and forests, towering mountains and precipitous ridges. The yin qi is dense. The evil qi is condensed in the depths of the spiritual qi. There is also turbid poisonous gas hidden deep in the forest. This is indeed not a good place. Qin Feng saw many ancient locust trees in the forest. These locust trees were originally things that gathered yin qi. A forest of locust trees was definitely a place of extreme yin. Under these dark ancient trees, even the traces of living creatures were rare. After passing through the gloomy locust tree ridge, a small ruin appeared in front of him. The ruin was located on top of the mountain. There was a temple carved out of ancient rocks and a statue of the primeval god. It was an abandoned temple. Gurgle, gurgle. Qin Feng's silhouette flashed as he appeared at the foot of the mountain. This place was a lake, and outside of the lake there was a forest of black bamboo. Qin Feng inclined his head. A small waterfall appeared before his eyes as the water flowed down. In the center of the lake, a stone statue with a tall crown and a wide belt could be seen. His eyes were filled with imposingness. No wonder I couldn't find any trace of the 9 Pinnacles mountain god. He was hiding in a corner of the ruins. This palace seems to be the ruins of the ancient mountain god. Is the 9 Pinnacles mountain god's consciousness not low? He still wants to become the mountain god? He scanned his surroundings and laughed coldly in his heart. The mountain god was a minor deity position. The mountain god position was an acquired deity position. Although it was an ordinary earth-type acquired deity position, it was undoubtedly more orthodox than a minor deity position. It's a pity that you met me. I'm afraid you won't have that life. Although the mountain god position is small, it can help me balance the yin and yang. I must have it. With a cold smile, Qin Feng locked his gaze on the temple in the middle of the mountain. His body flashed and disappeared. The moment Qin Feng left, the stone statue above the pool suddenly turned around. He looked at the place where Qin Feng disappeared and revealed a strange smile. Wait a minute, there's still more. Chapter 777. Inside the primitive and crude divine temple. The black-feathered crow seemed to be very familiar with the place. It sized up the divine temple in front of it, then landed in front of the divine table. With a flap of its wings, the air rippled. Boom! One by one, the chests landed in front of the main hall. When the chests were opened, orbs of will the size of rice grains emitted a faint white glow. Caw, Lord Mountain God, these are 10,000 high-grade orbs of will. In order to gather these 10,000 high-grade orbs of will, I have to sell my family's property for hundreds of years to those unscrupulous merchants from the Spirit Treasure sect. The black-feathered crow's eyes turned, flashing with pain. At this moment, a force suddenly appeared. The black-feathered crow suddenly froze, then strangely floated up inch by inch. A trace of fear flashed in its eyes. Lord Mountain God! Why is this happening? The black-feathered crow screeched. Chi-chi! Like the friction between stone and fire, A layer of scorching light golden flames rapidly appeared from the crow's fins. The scorching power was enough to incinerate the heavens. This was the true fire of the sun. This kind of flame was a top-notch heaven and earth spirit fire, and was about to evolve into the purple divine flame. In terms of power, it was enough to incinerate the void and melt the entire stone divine temple. However, under the suppression of the purple aura, it was like a dying struggle. In the divine temple, a strange human face condensed from the purple aura appeared in the air, staring ferociously at the black-feathered crow. "Trash, you can't even handle such a small matter. You actually let someone follow you here." "What?" The black-feathered crow widened its eyes. "How is this possible, Lord Evil God? My true body hasn't been in contact with my incarnation recently. How could anyone suspect the most ordinary crow?" Li Ruoshan was in disbelief. "Mountain God? You're really here?" Suddenly, another unfamiliar voice appeared. Without a sound, a gust of wind appeared in front of the ancient temple. Within the gust of wind, a black-robed figure appeared. He looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. His black hair draped over his shoulders, and his eyes were filled with an insufferably arrogant expression. "It's you, Qin Feng," the black-feathered crow screeched. Its eyes were filled with a trace of unquenchable anger and resentment. "Of course it's me, Grand Deacon." Qin Feng's gaze fell upon the chests of orbs of will placed in front of the hall. "The size of a grain of rice, and the color is pure. These are high-grade orbs of will, and from the looks of it, there are at least 10,000 of them. TSK. Head Deacon Li, your actions can be said to be extremely daring. Secretly colluding with the evil god and betraying the sect. This is a great crime worthy of the extermination of your entire clan." As soon as he finished speaking, the black-feathered crow began to shriek. "Kill him, mountain god, kill this bastard!" The 9 Pinnacles mountain god was not angered. Purple gas swirled around him, and the face formed by the fog swept a glance at Li Ruoshan. "Young man, you're the Vermilion Purple Mansion's mansion lord? Not bad. Are you willing to make a deal with me on behalf of this person?" Qin Feng calmly looked at the mountain god. In his spiritual consciousness, a formless force silently enveloped the mountains and rivers, as if a huge world had enveloped him. Isolated from the void, it was like an impenetrable wall entering another dimension. The power of the divine realm? A hint of eagerness flashed in his eyes. Hearing this, Qi Feng's expression changed, and he glanced at the black-feathered crow. 9 Pinnacles mountain god, you want to make a deal with me, but there's a saying that one shouldn't trouble 2 people for the same thing. What about him? What about him? He's just a piece of trash. He's useless now. The 9 Pinnacles mountain god was indifferent. "No, mountain god, you can't do this. I'm the one who released you from the seal, and I'm also the one who allowed you to regain your strength. You can't do this." The black-feathered crow panicked. "But I've already killed that 6th tribulation great sage for you, so we're even now. As for the deal this time, although you've brought over tens of thousands of orbs of will, you've also exposed my location. You deserve to die." The purple face of the 9 Pinnacles mountain god stared at the black-feathered crow, and a strange purple light flickered. The black-feathered crow's shriek stopped abruptly, as if its throat was choked. A hint of fear flickered, and silently, traces of purple flames shot out from it. In an instant, the black-feathered crow's ashes dissipated. At the same time, on the cloud-mist mountain's golden crow mountain, countless crimson divine lights lingered. Suddenly, Li Ruoshan, who was absorbing the power of the sun in the sky, opened his eyes. A hint of shock and fear shot out from his eyes. A trace of purple flames shot out from his body. Li Ruoshan flew down from the sky with a whoosh, and in the next moment, he turned into ashes and completely disappeared into the void. "Oh no, Li Ruoshan is dead. What happened? How did Li Ruoshan die without a sound? Could it be that the 9 Pinnacles evil god has sensed something? But we've only just suspected Li Ruoshan, and haven't done anything yet? In the dark, a few rays of starlight converged, and the aura of each ray of starlight was not inferior to that of a great sage expert. Something's not right. Has Qin Feng disappeared for a few days? Seems like it. Could it be that Qin Feng has found some clues? Unexpected problems have arisen, and caused a change in the situation. It must be so. We miscalculated. Oh no! Quickly think of a way to find Qin Feng's whereabouts. Don't let him take the initiative and take the mountain god's position. Yes, the mountain god's position is a crucial thing, and it's especially beneficial for us cultivators of the earth elemental law. We can't let anyone take the lead. Rays of starlight fluctuated rapidly, and flew out from the depths of the cloud mist mountain. There were no less than 7 or 8 rays of starlight, and there were even more starlight further away. In an instant, the entire Zhuzifu was filled with meteor-like rays of light. In the depths of the little barbaric mountain range, in the temple. Once the cunning rabbit is caught, the hound is cooked, and the bough is put away after the birds are gone. How pitiful! Qin Feng shook his head. His eyes flashed coldly. Was this an example to others? Young man, what do you think? The 9 Pinnacles mountain god's voice was indifferent, like an ancient, cold stone. There was no sign of life. Qin Feng said. Think about what? Spare your life? Qin Feng's voice was filled with mockery. Boom! Without a sound, a palm suddenly fell from the void, and a boundless force swept over. Bang! 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 The entire void seemed to be shattered by an irresistible force. Qin Feng seemed to see a vast world, and this vast world was wrapped in the power of the heavens and earth. Qin Feng sneered, and his hands formed a seal. An equally huge light shadow of the heavens and earth appeared on his body, and countless hand seals instantly condensed, turning into a ray of light and colliding with it. The first technique of the celestial tablet collapse. It was as if the heavens and the earth were colliding with each other. Bang! 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 It was as if the heavens and earth were shaking, and the entire mountain range was shaking violently, as if the earth was about to explode. Qin Feng was rebounded by the huge force, and his body flew back hundreds of meters like a ray of light. Whoosh! Whoosh! His chest heaved up and down, and a burning pain came from his skin. He glanced at it, and the huge rebounding force almost peeled off a layer of his skin. What a powerful divine domain! Its power is actually not inferior to my 6th-tier grotto heaven power of the heavens and earth. Looking at the temple, Qin Feng's eyes trembled. Chapter 778. It can actually resist the power of my godly realm? Unbeknownst to him, the 9 Pinnacles mountain god was also secretly shocked. Every evil god's strongest point was their godly realm power, followed by their godly realm laws. The godly realm power was a power bestowed by the heavens and earth. The heavens and earth referred to the power to control the sun, moon, stars, mountains, and rivers. This was also the result of the materialization of the heavens and earth. Every strand of heavens and earth contained unimaginable power. The godly realm power was the power refined by combining the heavens and earth with one's own grotto heaven. In Qin Feng's opinion, this was actually a secret realm, a foreign land, or a grotto heaven. Generally speaking, after a martial artist advanced to the nirvana stage, he would open up a foreign land or grotto heaven. However, to the spirit sea realm, opening up a grotto heaven without permission was illegal. This was because opening up a grotto heaven was like stealing the power of the heavens and earth. Thus, it would send down many disasters and destroy everything. If one survived, they would be able to take another step and continue to steal more power. If they failed, they would be completely destroyed. However, the godly realm power was different. With the heavens and earth, it was equivalent to putting a legal and reasonable label on one's body. Not only would the spirit sea realm not send down disasters, but they would also receive a strand of the spirit sea realm's power. As the saying went, the heavens and earth came with the same power, but the hero would not be free. The spirit sea realm's power was immense and mysterious. It was once known as the Mountain Sea Divine Land, and was the cradle of the gods and saints. It had even given birth to extremely terrifying sovereigns. The power it possessed was so great that even sovereigns did not dare to go against it. Even with a strand of the godly realm's power, it could easily rival a medium-sized grotto heaven. Similar to the acquired deity position that was born from countless heavens and earth, the heaven deity position had mysteries that made even gods and demons envious. It was enough to show how powerful it was. Qin Feng felt a little fortunate that the 9 Pinnacles mountain god before him had already been crippled by the self-titled 100,000 years. If it was at its peak, the 9 Pinnacles mountain god used to be a large country. At its peak, it encompassed almost the entire starry domain. One strike could mobilize the power of the entire domain of stars, and it was enough to easily kill any supreme being. So it turns out that you have a medium-sized grotto heaven on you. Just nice, you're giving me a tonic. After devouring your medium-sized grotto heaven, I think my divine domain's power should be able to recover quite a bit. A huge phenomenon was born and countless divine powers transformed, as if forming the embryonic form of the divine prefecture. It was a miniature version of the realm of stars. Qin Feng could feel a terrifying energy being nurtured. His heavenly grotto seemed to have met its natural enemy. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. The power of the divine domain also had a terrifying characteristic. It was not like a heavenly abode or a foreign land. It could almost wantonly devour the heavenly abodes of martial artists and turn them into nourishment. Unlike a group of martial way experts, they could not fearlessly devour other martial way experts' paradises. However, with the power of a god's domain, he could do this without fearing any backlash or repercussions. This seems to be beneficial for birds to kill pests. Kid, let me devour you obediently. In front of my divine domain, a quasi-sage like you is just an ant. 9 Pinnacles mountain god's cold voice could be heard. You want to devour me? Great, I'll devour you too. Qin Feng's eyes were filled with coldness. The power of a level 6 grotto heaven descended, and the aura on his body rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the level 6 Great Saint realm and reached the level 7 Earth Saint realm. Indeed, it's a medium-sized grotto, and a huge one with great potential. I can already smell a delicious smell. Kid, continue to struggle. The more you struggle, the lower your level. The prey in the spider's web will only be satisfied when they lose their last bit of strength. Seeing this, 9 Pinnacles mountain god laughed coldly. He did not stop him, but instead increased the power of his divine domain. The power of countless mountains and veins in the mini-savage lands was gathered by him. A vast world appeared, and the energy waves could destroy the heavens and shake the universe. Qin Feng's hair stood on end. Under this terrifying power, he felt that not only was his grotto about to be destroyed, but even his soul was about to be completely shattered. Like an ant. Even if he fully activated his grotto power, it would be useless. Indeed, the power of a divine domain is extremely powerful. It's almost the nemesis of grotto heavens. Qin Feng's expression did not change. He stood in the depths of the void, and the coldness in his eyes was like a blade that sliced through the void. He stared at the divine domain that was about to completely materialize. However, although the power of a divine domain is powerful, the power of heavens and earth also has its nemesis. The power of heavens and earth represents order, which means that it's afraid of laws of destruction. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Boom! There seemed to be tens of thousands of lightning bolts rumbling in the void, and a destructive power was born between Qin Feng's palms as he rapidly formed a seal. The second law, this is the law of lightning? 9 Pinnacles Mountain God's expression changed. Just as Qin Feng said, although the power of a divine domain was vast and boundless, it did have its nemesis. No, it's the law of destruction. 9 Pinnacles Mountain God was completely flustered. Among the laws of destruction, the law of destruction was the most commonly seen and the most terrifying. Under the law of destruction, even heavens and earth would be destroyed. 9 Pinnacles Mountain God was about to withdraw his divine domain and disappear into the earth vein. As long as he hid in the earth vein, he would be completely safe. No matter how powerful Qin Feng was, he would definitely not dare to destroy the earth vein. That would be a great sin. Destroying the earth vein would result in countless evil deeds, and that would be the punishment of the heavens. It's too late to run. His eyes were high up, and he greedily looked as if he was looking at a delicious meal. His face was a little pale. Using all the power in his body in one go was a little too much for him. With the power of a rank 7 Earth Sage, it was too much for him to unleash the myriad worlds' destructive lightning. The feeling of being sucked dry was extremely uncomfortable. Fortunately, the chaotic hollow was constantly absorbing the vitality in the boundless void. In just an instant, the true power in his body had recovered by quite a bit. Qin Feng looked at the gray lightning ball in his hand. The gray lightning ball seemed to be able to destroy time and space, turning the surrounding void into a terrifying chaos, like a gray black hole. Go! With a flick of his finger, Qin Feng roared. As soon as he finished speaking, the gray lightning ball instantly became a blurry lightning, and it streaked across tens of thousands of feet. Although the lightning ball contained a terrifying and majestic power of destruction, when it streaked across the void, it did not cause any ripples. It was so quiet that it was as if time and space had stopped. Dang dang dang! 9 Pinnacles Mountain God was alarmed. With a roar, earthy yellow divine power exploded from his body, and a small earthy yellow cauldron blocked in front of him. Boom! At this moment, the gray lightning suddenly descended and hit the small cauldron. Chapter 779. The lightning struck the small cauldron and an explosion resounded across the sky. Boom! The small cauldron flew to an unknown location. The destructive power struck the divine territory. It was as if it had met its nemesis. Layers of immense power collapsed and the entire divine territory shook violently. Under the destructive power flow, it collapsed inch by inch. Crack! Following a crisp sound, the 9 Cauldrons Mountain God was shocked. The destructive power was like a sharp awl that tore the divine territory apart. In the next moment, it struck the ancient godly soul in the middle. With a crack, it was split into two. 1/3 of one, and 2/3 of the other. Ah! His godly soul was torn apart. Even the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God could not help but cry out in pain. 2/3 of the 9 Pinnacles Mountain God's godly soul looked at Qin Feng with extreme hatred. He was also a person with great willpower. Without looking at the 1/3 of his godly soul, he transformed into a ray of light and charged into the depths of the mountain range. Trying to run, Qin Feng laughed coldly. Just as he was about to use the spatial laws, his expression changed. In a flash, he grabbed the 1/3 of the godly soul and kept it in his body. Boom! It was as if the void had shattered. 2 terrifying hands rushed out from the void and struck the 9 Cauldrons Mountain God's godly soul that was trying to merge into the mountain. Boom! The entire void seemed to have exploded. At this moment, another giant hand appeared and grabbed towards Qin Feng. Qin Feng felt his muscles stiffen. The space around him was sealed, and he could not move at all. It's at least at the level of a goddess? Qin Feng's body was cold, and there was a trace of anger in his eyes. Some old guys in Xingqian school were really shameless. She was trying to rob him by force. just as he was about to activate the Nirvana chaotic world again and unleash the destructive lightning god's skill. At this moment, in the air, a jade-green divine light that could penetrate through the heavens and earth appeared. It swept through the air and instantly slashed apart the giant hand reaching for Qin Feng, slashing into the depths of the void. B*th by Xia, how dare you! Deep in the void, a scream could be heard. How dare you! How dare you call me by my name? You're courting death. Amidst the rolling earth, water, wind, and fire, a cold female voice rang out. A blazing green light swept across the void. The jade-green profound light seemed to cover the heavens and the earth. Everywhere it passed, space shattered, and even the source of space transformed into fine sand of nirvana. Qin Feng could faintly see a huge yellow planet appear in the depths of the endless void. In the center of the planet, there was a middle-aged man in a yellow robe. His eyes flashed with shock. Without a sound, the dark green profound light pierced through the air and swept across the yellow planet at the center. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the entire enormous planet was rapidly shrinking. In the blink of an eye, only a small circle had been formed. Its senior sister by Xia's essence dispersing divine light. Gong Yangtu, that unlucky fellow, I'm afraid he lost at least 2,000 years of cultivation. It seems like I'm only left with the aura of a sage. I've dropped 4 major realms in one go. How pathetic! Gong Yangtu is an idiot. Who does he think he is? How dare he insult senior sister by Xia? Yeah, ever since senior sister by Xia obtained the position of Wood Ancestor, she has already passed the final tribulation. Gong Yangtu must be tired of living. He actually dared to provoke senior sister by Xia. But when did this little fellow get to know senior sister by Xia? He can actually get senior sister by Xia to stand up for him. Forget it. This little fellow is lucky. Let's give senior sister by Xia some face. There's still 2/3 of the mountain god's power left. Everyone will rely on their own abilities. Many starlights converged, and rays of divine light slashed out from the void. Before evil god Jiu Ding could rush into the mountain range, it was cut into 7 or 8 pieces by 7 or 8 rays of divine light. Giant hands rushed out from the void. Each person grabbed a part of it. In the blink of an eye, evil god Jiu Ding's divine soul was completely divided up. Qin Feng watched this scene with the corner of his mouth twitching. These old guys from Xingchen School were like hungry wolves and sharks. In the blink of an eye, they divided up the famous evil god Jiu Ding. Feeling the huge mass of divine soul power in his body, Qin Feng didn't know if he should be happy or worried. He could clearly feel that before those old guys left, they stared at him with unsatisfied expressions. Many of them didn't hide their greed at all. It seems that I still underestimated the attraction of the deity position to these experts. If it wasn't for by Xia Wood Ancestor, I'm afraid that those old guys wouldn't have let it go. Kid, why are you still hesitating here? Although this mountain god is only an 8th grade deity position, those old guys probably won't be able to stop drooling for a while. Don't continue to stay in Zhuzifu. Find a place to refine and cultivate. Come back when this storm is over. Suddenly, a cold female voice that was as pleasant as celestial music appeared in the depths of Qin Feng's mind. Qin Feng was slightly stunned and instantly reacted. This was the Bai Xia Wood Ancestor. Just in time. In less than a month, the primitive dragon gate will appear. I remember that you seem to have an innate snake body. You can give it a try. If you can enter the primitive dragon gate and obtain the dragon transformation talisman, you can turn an innate black snake into an innate dragon snake. That's also a great blessing. Hearing this, Qin Feng moved and tore the void apart. The next moment, he disappeared. Just as he disappeared, in the daytime, several starry rainbows pierced through the void and descended on the little savage wasteland. Damn it, we're late. The aura of the deity territory has disappeared. Preposterous. Huge starlight fluctuations. The blazing starlight appeared in the daytime. The entire Great Yen Kingdom seemed to see dozens of huge stars descending from the sky. Fortunately, I left quickly. If I was surrounded by those old guys who were like hungry wolves, it would be troublesome. Qin Feng's heart palpitated. With his current strength, even if he had the Chaos Grotto Heaven as his foundation, it would be a tough battle to face so many hungry wolves. His figure flashed, and he randomly found a mountain range. He entered the mountain range and activated his divine ability to hide inside. Now, the first thing he needed to do was to completely refine the mountain god's divine soul. He was preparing to refine the remaining 1/3 of the mountain god's authority. The mountain god's position was the 8th rank according to the ancient 9-rank system. The mountain god's authority was in charge of mountains, earth veins, and even a part of the yin and yang cycle. This was a deity position that spanned across many domains. Its core was the mountains. Qin Feng didn't care about the mountain and earth law's authority. Instead, he was interested in the mountain god's deity position. There was a piece of the mountain god's deity position that interfered with yin and yang. This was an ancient cave that was filled with the smell of mud. This cave had been opened not long ago and was surrounded by a layer of restrictions that sealed off the aura. A yellow lotus appeared under Qin Feng's feet. This was the earth lotus, a spiritual root that grew above the earth veins. Sitting cross-legged on this lotus, Qin Feng wholeheartedly refined the divine soul of the 9 cauldrons mountain god. He extracted 1/3 of the mountain god's deity position from the divine soul. Chapter 780. The divine soul was the soul of the evil god, possessing an almost indestructible power. Even the passage of time could not drown the divine soul. This was already a basic form of immortality. Even the primordial overlords, even if they were supremes who sealed their epochs, no matter how strong they were, and had heaven-defying divine herbs to replenish their lifespan, they could not avoid their lifespan withering and turning into ashes. Only with the deity position and the divine soul could one swim through time and not be eroded by time. When Qin Feng was at his peak, he was known as a half-step thunder demon god, but even he could not truly transform the supreme soul into a divine soul. Such a divine soul was something a martial Tao expert could only look at without daring to touch it, let alone suppress it in his body. But for Qin Feng, suppressing it was not a problem. It was even the best tonic for the soul. The extreme true force had surpassed the heavenly Tao and was enough to refine the divine soul. The divine soul was refined inch by inch and merged into the innate yang god. Qin Feng activated the 6th level of the 8 Barons Indestructible Heaven scripture. The 5th level, Immortality from a Drop of Blood. The 6th level, Immortality of the Soul. The 6th level was the highest level that Qin Feng had created in his previous life. Now that he had obtained the real 8 Barons Indestructible Heaven scripture, Qin Feng realized that he had gone in the wrong direction in his previous life. The immortality of the soul was not bad, but it was not achieved overnight. It was divided into different levels. The first level was the true soul. The second level was the yin god. The third level was the yang god. The fourth level was the yuan shin. The fifth level was the saint soul. The sixth level was the divine soul. The saint's soul could resist the corrosion of the 5 decay. The divine soul could resist the passage of time. Cultivating the divine soul would give one the ability of a demon god to resist the corrosion of time and become immortal. However, the soul strengthened by the 8 Barons Indestructible Heaven scripture had an obvious advantage in the same level. As Qin Feng formed a series of hand seals, the innate yang god began to refine the 9 cauldrons evil god's divine soul. The divine soul was like a warm tonic, its medicinal efficacy spreading into the innate yang god. Qin Feng's hand seals, the innate young god absorbed the divine soul and started to transform. Countless ancient runes appeared around the fiery red innate young god. The innate young god's soul, and gradually, a fiery red divine land of divine soul dimension. The entire young spirit had turned into a fiery red scarlet divine wilderness. Divine land was not an ordinary land. Of the ancient barons, the ancient eight desolation was the core region of the spirit sea realm. It possessed an extremely mysterious and unbelievable power. Heaven and Earth sect had such a technique which specialized in cultivating eight desolate grotto heaven, forming a region similar to eight desolate. Of divine. Qin Feng felt that as the innate young god transformed into one of the eight desolates, a huge force came from the void and seeped into the innate young god. Divine of the of. The divine of the divine. Divine of the divine. Divine of the divine. A third of the divine soul? Qin Feng was not without regret. At this time, his young spirit could still feel that there was a huge force coming from the unseen world at all times. This was the great path of fortune and also the support of the great path of fortune. The innate young god moved slightly. The innate young god was 10 times stronger than the Yuan Shun of his previous life. So this is the true profundity of the eight barons' indestructible heavenly scripture. To be able to receive the support of the ancient eight barons, this power is unimaginably strong. Just a trace of the ancient eight barons is enough to rival a small secular world. If I continue to absorb the ancient eight barons, not even the demon gods will be my match. Qin Feng felt the true terror of the great monarch of the Eastern Barons. To be able to create such a cultivation technique, one must be unimaginably strong. But the Siren Queen said that Gong Ao also inherited this cultivation technique. He is the true successor of the Eastern Barons. He has been cultivating this cultivation technique since he was young. How strong must he be? Qin Feng's face froze, and a solemn expression appeared in his eyes. A man's shadow, a tree's name. Forget it, let's not worry about Gong Ao for now. Gong Ao has been searching for the Eastern Baron's divine treasure. If I'm not wrong, this Eastern Baron's divine treasure will only appear in a short period of time. My mission now is to continue searching for opportunities and increase my strength. When the time comes, I will think of a way to compete with Gong Ao for the Eastern Baron's divine treasure. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. Qin Feng looked at the 1/3 of the mountain deity position that was stripped away. It was a ball of extremely bright light. It was ever-changing. Sometimes it was an ancient deity position talisman, sometimes it was a rhombus-shaped crystal, sometimes it was a yellow gas, sometimes it was a 1,000 miles mountain painting, and sometimes it was an ancient stone tablet, but regardless of the shape, in Qin Feng's eyes, it was the authority of the 1,000 miles mountains and rivers. After refining it, he would obtain the authority of the 9 Pinnacles Mountain and the Great Yen Kingdom. This cluster of divine thrones was still unwilling to submit. They were like numerous mountains that slammed into the spatial seal Qin Feng had set up around him. They were like mountains crashing into each other with immense power. Trying to escape? No way. Qin Feng laughed coldly. His entire body changed. Like a galaxy, it swept across the deity position and completely suppressed it. His extreme Tao true power refined the origin of the deity position inch by inch and fused with the rest of the Yang spirit. A strange thing was born. The Yang spirit was still fusing with 1/3 of the mountain deity position. Qin Feng seemed to see an ancient spiritual mountain-blessed land. It was a huge mountain. The mountain range was crisscrossed, and the spiritual energy underground was extremely rich. This seems to be the Great Yen Kingdom's 9 Pinnacles Mountain? Qin Feng's eyes revealed a strange look. The 9 Pinnacles Mountain was a huge ancient mountain range. It spanned millions of miles and passed by the Great Jin country, the Black Water Country, and the Great Yen Kingdom. No one knew how many living beings it had nurtured. As the deity position fused with the Yang spirit, Qin Feng felt as if his heavenly abode had become the center of this ancient mountain. It suppressed the spirit of the mountain and became the core of yin and yang. It was like water and milk. His body also felt relaxed. He was no longer repelled, and did not need to support the heavenly abode. The power of the heavenly abode changed into a strange power. This power was even more grand and had a vast and mighty pressure. This is the legendary power of the divine realm? Qin Feng suddenly realized. At this time, he felt that his full strength attack was enough to shake an 8th-level world king saint. His palm moved slightly. 2 powers, one red and one blue, circled around his palm like rainbows. They fused together and turned into a gray power. Wherever it passed, the void faintly fluctuated, as if a small world was born. A world born with a thought. Qin Feng's eyes brightened as he muttered. Although the void laws and the heaven laws have not completely fused into the true space laws, it will be soon. At most half a month, I will be able to completely fuse yin and yang and become a void saint. There's more to come. Chapter 781. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes as he felt the fusion of yin and yang in his body. Under the mediation of the deity position, it quickly turned into spatial laws. Ordinary quasi-sages would take hundreds of years to combine yin and yang into one. Now that he had the power of the deity position, the process was shortened to half a month. Next, I have to think of a way to transform my primordial spirit into a saint's soul and comprehend the sage monarch law. A sage monarch can place his saint's soul in the void and have the ability of sudden inspiration. It's almost impossible to plot against him. However, I just broke through to the sage realm and can't break through to the sage monarch realm immediately. Moreover, to break through to the sage monarch realm, I have to go through the first heaven's blight. The physical exhaustion of the first heaven's blight is no joke. I have to be well prepared before I try to break through. 5 heaven's blights. The first heaven's blight was the decline of the physical body. It required an extremely exuberant vitality to survive. There couldn't be any flaws in the physical body. Maybe I can try to jump through the Dragon Gate? Qin Feng recalled the words of the Blue Dawn Wood ancestor. The primitive Dragon Gate was an 800-mile-long Dragon Gate. One could jump through the Dragon Gate and receive the baptism of dragonization. He originally had the body of a black snake. Although he had the body of a black snake, and was the snake ancestor, there was a trace of dragon nature in his body. Logically speaking, it was basically impossible for the snake ancestor to transform into a dragon. Because once the snake ancestor transformed into a dragon, he would be the dragon ancestor of a lineage. However, the primitive Dragon Gate was different. This treasure was the most mysterious treasure in the universe and had unimaginable power. It was rumored that the primordial dragon ancestor appeared from the primitive Dragon Gate. If I can transform into the dragon ancestor, then the 5th heaven's blight is nothing to worry about. A glint flashed across Qin Feng's eyes. The dragon ancestor was the first generation of the dragon race. He was born with a trace of the dragon race's fortune. His status was not inferior to the wood ancestor. In terms of power, although it was just a name, the substantial support was not inferior to a real 8th-tier deity position. Although Qin Feng had the body of a black snake, he was at most the 3rd generation. The snake ancestor only had a name but no practical benefit. In reality, there was almost no one who could truly become the snake ancestor. Originally, the 2nd-generation son of Blackwater had inherited the previous generation's snake ancestor's title and had the opportunity to obtain the snake ancestor's luck. Unfortunately, he was unlucky enough to be split apart by Qin Feng's Blackwater snake pearl and even had a portion of his blood essence stolen by Qin Feng. He had no choice but to possess the body of the dragon's son of the East Sea. Although he had created a new bloodline, the Blackwater demonic dragon, he could not be called the ancestor of snakes or ancestors of dragons. At most, he would be a false dragon ancestor. A month later, on this day, the great Yen kingdom was silent. Countless purple clouds shrouded the entire great Yen kingdom. The birth of a saint? I wonder which expert broke through to the saint realm. What a powerful vision! This violet energy is 3,000 miles long. This is no ordinary saint. This is the sign of a paragon saint being born. On Mount Yunwu, even though they were thousands of miles away, the three saints of Lu Tufeng could still see the purple aura that permeated the horizon. The three saints were shocked. Purple qi covered 3,000 li. Most sages would only have a purple aura of 100 miles when they broke through. The most powerful sages would have a purple aura of 1,000 miles at most. Among the sages in the sect who recently broke through, only perfected cultivator Hong Luan is comparable to this. Perfected cultivator Immortal Sound exclaimed. Zhang Han shook his head. Almost. When junior sister Hong Luan broke through, her violet aura was 2,000 miles long and was praised by the sect master as a rare sight. The one in front of us has exceeded the limit of 3,000 li. You and I both know that a violet aura that reaches 3,000 li is a paragon saint, not an ordinary saint. 3,000 li of violet aura. I'm afraid only the 9 true disciples can compare to this. I heard that when Gong Ao, Fu Tian, Ing Tianqing, and the other true disciples broke through, they all had extremely powerful visions, but the sect covered it up. Perfected cultivator Iron Scene frowned. What an eventful period. I wonder which expert broke through to the saint realm. A saint was very important, especially a paragon saint. If it was the patriarch of another sect or family, it would not be a good thing for Xingchen school. I wonder how the schoolmaster is doing. He obtained a part of the deity position of the mountain god. Now, many of the elders in the sect are watching our Zhuzi mansion, waiting for him to appear. Deity position? The three saints were secretly envious. I'm afraid he won't appear before refining the deity position. For now, we should take care of the Zhuzi mansion for the schoolmaster. Now, many of the 8 mountain masters are itching to make a move. Perfected cultivator Iron Scene's eyes were cold and murderous. Since Qin Feng had entrusted Zhu Zifu to the 3 saints of Lu Tufeng, the 3 saints of Lu Tufeng would definitely not allow others to seize this family property. This is very normal. The 8 mountain masters are all ambitious. Without junior brother Qin Feng here, it's inevitable that these people will have some other thoughts. We are both junior brother's good friends and also his subordinate. Although we don't have a deep relationship, we have always admired junior brother's character. We definitely can't let these ambitious wolves destroy junior brother's foundation. Zhang Han's face was also cold. In the battle of the Golden Light Demon Kingdom, if it weren't for Qin Feng, the 3 saints of Lu Tufeng might have all died in 100 Flower City, not to mention the great gains they would have made later. Although Qin Feng was not one of Lu Tufeng's people, the 3 saints of Lu Tufeng had long regarded him as one of their own. If we watch junior brother Qin Feng's foundation being taken away and the news spreads, how can we show our faces? Perfected cultivator Celestial Sound glanced at the misty mountain. She landed on the residences of the other 4 deacons. Not only the 8 mountain masters, but there were also people jumping up and down in the misty mountain recently. My Lu Tufeng is not like junior brother Qin Feng, who has no foundation. My Lu Tufeng has been declining in recent years. Many of our disciples are idle. It was not easy to find a place to settle down and start afresh. We can't let you guys ruin it. However, there is no need to rush. These are all small fries. What's the big fish behind? Perfected cultivator Celestial Sound looked in the direction of Xianping Prefecture and Jinbo Prefecture. One Zhuzi mansion was missing a bit. Thinking of those poor senior brothers, junior brothers, and sisters on the mountain, the 3 saints of Lu Tufeng wished that the 8 mountain masters would all rebel. It would be best if the 2 prefectures' forces were involved. That way it would be a pot of soup. At that time, Juzi Mansion would definitely have a lot more seats. It would also be able to settle down those hungry senior brothers on the mountain. After silently passing the 4th wind tribulation, condensing the true space law and becoming a sage, Qin Feng walked out of seclusion. Qin Feng rushed towards the Yan Empire's largest river, Cold Water River. The Dragon Gate assembly of the Great Desolate Land could only be held once at the beginning of each epoch. Every time it appeared, it would only appear for 9 days. Within 9 days, carps would leap over the Dragon Gate. Almost all strange beasts with dragon nature or dragon bloodline would appear. The entrance to the primitive desolate Dragon Gate was very simple. In Qin Feng's memory, basically any river that exceeded 3,000 miles could lead directly to the primitive desolate Dragon Gate. However, it was not easy to leap over the Dragon Gate. 800 miles of the Dragon Gate. This did not mean that the Dragon Gate was 800 miles long. It meant that within 800 miles of the Dragon Gate, all the experts who had leaped over the Dragon Gate would lose their true power. They could only rely on their physical body to fight and comprehend the way of the dragon. Only then would they be able to find the location of the Dragon Gate. Finally, they would leap in and fuse with the power of the Dragon Gate to transform into a true dragon. It's the end of the year, other than working overtime, it's still overtime. Damn it, it's impossible not to pay overtime. Tomorrow it's still 4 o'clock. Chapter 782. Blackwater Nation, Chui Ping Mountain. In the inner chamber of the Thunder Emperor residence, true monarch Thunder Emperor was wearing a heavenly Thunder Dharma robe. Junior sister, how's the investigation of my escape going? What's the background of this Qin Feng? In front of him, there was a silvery white water mirror, and a beautiful figure with no makeup appeared. Senior brother Thunder Emperor, I suggest you don't act rashly. You might not know, but this Qin Feng has a great background. The crisp and pleasant voice carried a hint of seriousness. What? Junior sister Qingping, could it be that this Qin Feng has some secret behind his back? Isn't he Niu Jinfeng's true disciple? Niu Jinfeng can't even keep the title of main peak anymore. True monarch Thunder Emperor was puzzled. True monarch Chui Ping shook her head. Senior brother, you're wrong. He doesn't have any background, but he's powerful himself. He's powerful himself? He's just a quasi-saint expert? True monarch Thunder Emperor was even more puzzled. In short, this matter involves the secrets of the sect. I only got the hint from Master. Although Master didn't say it in detail, you'd better be careful, senior brother. The water mirror closed. True monarch Thunder Emperor muttered to himself as he recalled the letter sent by the Manor Lord of Xian Ping Prefecture. The letter mentioned many benefits. There was only one condition, and that was to leave Purple Vermilion Prefecture and join Xian Ping Prefecture. True monarch Thunder Emperor was somewhat tempted, but he couldn't help but have misgivings when he thought of the information his junior sister had sent. Leaving Purple Vermilion Prefecture like this would cause trouble. Once Qin Feng returned, he would have an excuse to launch a crusade against Chui Ping Mountain. Even the sect couldn't use heavenly rules to restrict such a crusade. True monarch Thunder Emperor knew very well that the sages of Lu Tufeng were eyeing them covetously, waiting for them to make a mistake so that they could replace them. Let's wait and see the situation before making a decision. Baoyu Nation, Cold Spring Mountain. This place got its name because of the Khanate Cold Spring. The Cold Spring Palace stood here. A slightly gloomy voice came from the palace. Mountain Chieftain, the Mountain Chieftain of Great Kong, Scarlet Maple Mountain, Great Yong, Little Yong, and Pitfall Mountain have all sent news. They will follow Mountain Chieftain's lead. As long as Mountain Chieftain makes a decision, they will definitely respond with their troops. Cold Spring Palace's Grand Deacon Jiang Zhan's voice was filled with excitement. Palace Master, we can start the Battle of the Stars. The Battle of Star Defying was a small-scale battle permitted by the sect. If any of the mountain chieftains were dissatisfied with the manor head, they could initiate the Battle of the Stars and push the manor head to rule. Once the Battle of the Stars failed, the manor head would completely lose control of the manor. Under normal circumstances, some mountain lords would not do such a thing. There was only one way to start a war against the stars. The master was weak and the ministers were strong. Cold Spring Palace Master Sky Kuei Sage frowned. I'm afraid it's not that simple. You've heard about Qin Feng's information just now. The senior brothers of Kong Gold Peak also seem to be secretive about Qin Feng. With such carelessness, I'm afraid, although Sky Kuei Sage coveted the position of manor head, he was still a little wary of Qin Feng. Qin Feng was able to safely obtain 1/3 of the mountain god position and escape unscathed from the interference of so many old antique. He could not help but reconsider. The other deacon, Yin Xiaoming, saw through Sky Kuei Sage's thoughts. He saw the eagerness and greed in Sky Kuei Sage's eyes. He was already tempted, but he had other misgivings. Yin Xiaoming said slowly, Senior brother Sky Kuei, you don't have to be so wary of Qin Feng. Our young master can guarantee that as long as you obtain the manor head position of Vermilion Violet Manor, there will be nothing to worry about. Young master. Sky Kuei Sage's eyes lit up. Everyone present knew who Yin Xiaoming was. Everyone had already experienced Gong Ao's power. That person was extremely influential. Moreover, senior brother Sky Kuei, our young master can also guarantee that if you cause trouble, he can help you hold back your old rival, Thunder Sovereign True Lord. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of everyone in the hall changed. This was the perfect time, the right place, and the right people. Good. With junior brother Yi Ding's words, that brat Qin Feng is no longer a problem. Sky Kuei Sage slammed the table and stood up. He looked at Mount Yunwu with a heroic spirit. His eyes seemed to be burning with fiery demonic flames. Compared to Xianping Manor and Jinbo Manor's roping, a mere mountain lord position was nothing. That position was his rightful seat. Everyone, inform the other manors to prepare their troops. 3 days later, we will attack Mount Yunwu. Yen Country, Black Water Country, and Frigid Ice Country were adjacent to Snow Region. They were colder than the southern countries. Frigid Water River originated from Snow Region and passed through Frigid Ice Country, Black Water Country, Yen Country, Xiaohou Country, Su Country, Qin Country, Jin Country, and other countries. It was a huge river. Because it originated from Snow Region, the water was cold all year round. There were many ferocious beasts living in Snow Region. There were still 2 days before the primitive Dragon Gate opened. The wind passed through Yen Country and arrived at Frigid Ice Country, which was adjacent to Snow Region. Qin Feng remembered that he still had an enemy in Frigid Ice Country. Ferocious by nature and eloquent. Qin Feng had always remembered the king of Frigid Ice Country's evaluation of him. After that, Black Water Country and Qin Country seemed to have agreed to help him destroy Frigid Ice Country. However, years passed in the blink of an eye and nothing happened. Qin Feng's figure flashed and traveled 1,000 miles in the blink of an eye. Following the rolling frigid water river under his feet, Qin Feng arrived at a country in Snow Region. Thousands of miles were covered in ice and snow. The mountains in the distance and the city towers nearby were all white. The official roads were sealed by snow. In such a snowy day, one could only travel by using some ferocious beasts that knew the way. Frigid Ice Country's capital was under a snow-covered mountain range. This mountain range was called Snow Region Mountain Range. It was the boundary line between Snow Region and Star Region. From afar, it looked like a snow-covered giant dragon's skin was in the sea of clouds. A snowstorm blew from the other side of the mountain range. The wind and clouds whistled, blowing heaven and earth and freezing everything. Under the giant dragon's claws, frigid ice country seemed to have the best protection. Standing in the sea of clouds, Qin Feng looked at Snow Region. It was rumored that in the depths of Snow Region, there was the Xian sect of Snow Region, which was ranked 35th among the 72 mysterious sections. This was also a huge sect. However, the Xian sect of Snow Region had been sealed for thousands of years and rarely saw any disciples. Although Star Region and Xian sect shared a border, they had not interacted for a long time. Using the Saint's Law, a figure appeared in the sky above Li Capital. Below, the glorious Li Capital was faintly discernible under the white clouds, revealing a corner of its glory. Although it was located in a bitter cold land, frigid ice country was not weak. Moreover, because it had to fight with wind and snow all year round, as well as extremely cold beasts, frigid ice country's strength was not comparable to a mid-ranked commandery. However, it was still one of the best among the low-ranked commanderies. It was not inferior to the neighboring Black Water Country and Qin Country. With a flash, Qin Feng's figure landed in the palace of frigid ice country below. Wait, there are 3 more. Chapter 783. In the Imperial Palace of the Frozen Ice Country. The magnificent palace seemed to be carved out of ice crystals, yet it was filled with warmth. Father, Miss Guan has been in seclusion in the Frozen Emperor Point for more than 49 days. She should be able to reach the Sea Reincarnation Realm with the help of the Frozen Ice Imperial Family's innate Frozen Point. However, I'm afraid that the innate Frozen Point that has been accumulating for hundreds of years, a trace of regret flashed in the young man's eyes. The innate Frozen Emperor Point was the most precious place in the Frozen Ice Country. The innate Frozen Ice Imperial Cold Chi it produced was an extremely high-grade cold chi with a trace of innate cold chi. It was extremely mysterious. The Frozen Ice Imperial Family's innate Frozen Emperor spiritual vein was far superior to ordinary ice cultivators. It was a supreme-grade spiritual vein. However, the innate Frozen Emperor Point produced a limited amount of innate Frozen Ice Imperial Cold Chi every year. Even the most outstanding 4th prince of the Frozen Ice Imperial family, Xiaku, couldn't get it. He could hear the pity in Xiaku's voice. In the main hall, several experts of the Frozen Ice Imperial family looked at each other and smiled. 4th prince, there's no need to feel pity. Miss Guan's position is the key to getting out of this predicament. Since the end of the All-Star Martial Competition, Heishui Country and Qin Country have been biting us like mad dogs. Although we didn't let the 2 countries get any benefits due to the terrain, these people have sealed off our borders, making it difficult for us to move. This expert of the Frozen Ice Imperial family sighed inwardly. There was even more hatred. If it wasn't for Qin Feng, the Frozen Ice Country wouldn't be in such a difficult situation. On the throne, a trace of hatred flashed in the eyes of the current Frozen Ice Emperor, Xia Qing. The first prince, Xia Ling, was extremely talented. He broke through to the pulse-condensing stage at a young age and condensed 36 Frozen Emperor spiritual veins. The Frozen Ice Imperial family's secret art, Frozen Emperor technique, was cultivated to the 6th layer long ago, forming the Frozen Emperor's true body. If he grew up normally, he might even become a supreme expert. Unfortunately, he was ruined by Qin Feng. Ever since he was defeated by Qin Feng, he couldn't recover from the setback. His gaze fell on the 4th prince Xiaku. Although the 4th prince's talent wasn't weak, he was lacking compared to the 1st prince Xia Ling. The frigid ice monarch said in a deep voice, this Miss Guan's identity is not ordinary. She is the youngest disciple of one of the grand elders in Xingqian school. It can be said that she is loved by everyone. However, her family background is relatively ordinary. She comes from a small family in the Yen Kingdom. You still have a chance. As long as you can make her have a good impression of you, You should know the importance of it. Xiaoku was startled. Of course, he knew the importance of this. Don't worry, father. In terms of talent, I may not be as good as Big Brother, but in terms of women, Big Brother is definitely not as good as me. Good. The Ice Monarch's eyes were filled with satisfaction. As long as we can get in touch with that Taishang elder, the kingdom of Qing doesn't need to fear a mere Heishui kingdom. Our Ice Kingdom may become a mid-ranked commandery, or even an upper-ranked commandery. We can even kill that bastard and avenge your brother. A trace of resentment flashed across the eyes of the Ice Monarch. Is that so? In the main hall, a sneering voice suddenly rang out. How dare you? Who dares to trespass into the palace? How dare you? In the main hall, many experts could not help but change their expressions. A figure in black silently appeared in the main hall. His black hair was draped over his shoulders, and his slender eyebrows were dark and deep, as if he was the gloomiest darkness in the world. It's you? The Ice Monarch's face became extremely ugly. Although they had not seen each other for 1 or 2 years, he was very familiar with this face. Qin Feng. It was as if these 2 words were squeezed out from his teeth. What? Qin Feng? In the main hall, many experts of the imperial clan, whose faces were filled with murderous intent, were about to step forward to capture Qin Feng. Monarch of Xia country, years have passed in the blink of an eye. I didn't expect that even Xingqian school would be finished. According to the rules of Xingqian school, when an outer sanctum disciple enters a country, the treatment of an outer sanctum disciple is better than that of a prime minister. The treatment of an inner sanctum disciple is better than that of a duke of Qin. The treatment of a core disciple of Xingqian school is better than that of a duke of Qin and a king of Qin. The treatment of a core disciple is better than that of a lord. Not only am I a core disciple of Xingqian school, I am also the schoolmaster of Zhuzifu. You should address me as your honor or lord. Are you trying to go against the rules of Xingqian school by addressing me directly by my name? Qin Feng raised his head slightly, and his eyes were filled with coldness. You still want to take revenge? You are simply daydreaming. The Ice Monarch stood up, and his face and eyes were filled with coldness. Qin Feng, don't go overboard. Just like what Qin Feng had said, although Xingqian school had such rules, everyone had agreed to give the other party some face. This was simply too overbearing. That's enough, don't give me that. Your Ice Monarch dared to leave Zhuzifu, and that in itself is a great crime. Qin Feng waved his hand and slowly walked over. In front of the ugly faces of the imperial clan members, he stepped onto the throne, grabbed the Ice Monarch by the collar, and casually threw him to the side. Then, he walked onto the throne. The Ice Monarch's face was ashen with anger. However, he was even more terrified. He found that even with his peak pulse condensation cultivation, he was like a baby in front of Qin Feng. However, you are still a country under Xingqian school. As a true disciple of Xingqian school, I cannot act recklessly. You better pray for your own good. If I find evidence of your betrayal, your entire family will die. This was a crushing suppression of strength. The invisible pressure caused many experts in the imperial palace to pale, but they could not move. A martial arts overlord? A supreme expert, or an unparalleled supreme expert? The Ice Monarch's face was pale. He did not dare to imagine that such a thing would happen. His body was stiff, and he could not even move his lips under the pressure of this world-shackling aura. However, I always announce my actions and set up a private torture chamber. You might not be convinced and say that my Xingqian school is suppressing others with strength and is unscrupulous in doing things. Qin Feng glanced at the Ice Monarch's court of civil and military officials. With this glance, the court of civil and military officials felt as if they were the god of death, and they all shivered. The high and mighty court officials felt their legs tremble. How about this? Let's be fair and invite several arbitrators. Sitting on the throne, Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light as he muttered. Who will be the arbitrators? Invite the great families of the Ice Monarch? That won't do. Their status is too low. If this news spreads, they might say that our Xingqian school is threatening them. Hearing his words, many civil and military officials' faces stiffened. They wanted to question him, but they could not say anything. Qin Feng murmured to himself, how about inviting my Xingqian school's disciples to be the witnesses? But that doesn't seem right. If this spreads, people might say that our Xingqian school is tyrannical and covering up for each other. Then let's invite the emperors of the surrounding countries to be the arbitrators. Their status is not low, so I think you will be convinced. The court of civil and military officials felt that Qin Feng was crazy. The emperors of the surrounding countries, even the closest Heishui country and Qin country, were tens of thousands of miles away from the Ice Monarch. This was a joke. How could they be the arbitrators from tens of thousands of miles away? Wasn't this just daydreaming? In the main hall, many experts were disdainful, but soon everyone was stunned. Boom! While talking to himself, he smashed the entire void with one palm. Qin Feng's hand went deep into the void. At the same time, above the imperial palace of the Black Water country, thousands of miles away, a huge hand appeared out of nowhere and grabbed at him. Chapter 784. What's going on? Why did the sky turn dark? In the Blackwater country's palace, the imperial guards were dumbfounded. The Blackwater country's monarch's face was trembling. In the next moment, under the fearful gazes of countless civil and military officials, the giant palm grabbed the Blackwater country's monarch and disappeared into the horizon. This, an old ancestor of the Blackwater country's royal family, rushed out from his meditation area, looking at this scene with a pale face. The power emitted by that terrifying giant hand was not something he could withstand. In the imperial palace of the frigid ice country, Qin Feng did the same thing. Once again, he grabbed another emperor from the void, who was wearing a royal robe. The two monarchs' faces were pale, and they were still in shock when they landed. When they looked up and saw the other party, they were stunned. Blackwater country's monarch. Qin country's monarch. On the other side, the Ice country's civil and military officials were stunned as they watched the two monarchs run out from the void. Grabbing someone from thousands of miles away, what kind of method was this? The Ice country's monarch, Xiaqing, was as pale as a sheet. This kind of method was almost a myth. Although the Ice country was one of the many countries with deep roots and powerful figures in their clan, they definitely did not have this kind of ability. Being targeted by such a powerful figure, would the Ice country's royal family have a future? As far as he knew, the Ice country's royal family was not that clean. Who are you? Why did you kidnap me? Do you know that I am the Qin country's monarch? Compared to the Qin country's monarch, the Blackwater country's monarch was more tactful. He glanced at the powerhouses around him who could not move. This gathering of civil and military officials was clearly another palace. Taking a closer look, the Blackwater country's monarch's face changed. This seemed to be the Ice country's royal palace. Thrown to the side, wasn't that the Ice country's monarch? After fighting with the Ice country for so long, the Blackwater country was confident that it was not a mistake. Could it be that I was kidnapped by the Ice country? His heart sank. His gaze fell on a black-clothed youth sitting on the throne. He did not know why, but he was a little dazed. This figure was somewhat familiar. Monarchs, I haven't seen you for 2 years. You look the same. A faint voice sounded. The black-clothed youth's voice had a trace of a sigh. 2 years? The two monarchs were stunned. The memory of martial arts cultivators was far superior to that of ordinary people. Soon, the two monarchs came to their senses. You are Qin Feng. The two monarchs looked as if they had seen a ghost. After not seeing him for 2 years, Qin Feng actually had such a remarkable ability. However, he couldn't help but ask. Then this is the imperial palace of the frigid ice country. There is no need for the two of you to be alarmed. I only invited you here to act as arbitrators. I will send you back in a bit. Qin Feng didn't want to say anything more to the two monarchs. All right, people of the frigid ice nation, pray that you wipe your butts clean, otherwise, Qin Feng snorted coldly. With a wave of his sleeve, a dim moon shot up into the sky above his head. The cold moonlight dispersed the thick clouds above the imperial city of the frozen ice country that had been there for thousands of years. As the frost scattered, a huge wheel appeared. Great Yin reincarnation! With a clear shout, Qin Feng pointed his finger and a terrifying suction force erupted from the great Yin wheel. To everyone's horror, it was as if their souls were being forcefully pulled out and merged into the huge wheel. The two monarchs of the Heishui country and Qin country paled, and were about to shout out. Qin Feng's expression didn't change. An invisible force froze the two monarchs. Don't panic, I invited you here to act as arbitrators. Hearing the words in their ears, the two monarchs took a deep breath and raised their heads. At this time, inside the great Yin reincarnation, all the secrets of the royal family appeared in front of the two monarchs. Corruption, bullying, treason, all kinds of scandals appeared one by one. The two monarchs' faces were dark and gloomy. The most interesting one was the fourth prince, Xiaku. He robbed and plundered, even reaching his evil hands into the harem of the frozen ice country. Many of the concubines were played with by him. His methods left a shadow in the hearts of the two monarchs. Sitting on the throne, Qin Feng's expression was strange. Although the frozen ice country's royal family was full of filth and most of them had bad conduct, there was no collusion with other sections. Could it be that these people are really innocent? Qin Feng didn't believe it. He didn't act without thinking. If he hadn't heard a lot of rumors, he wouldn't have acted rashly. It seems that the frozen ice country is just a puppet pushed out by the frozen ice country's royal family. They didn't participate in the real events. I have to catch a few more of them. Muttering to himself, Qin Feng scanned the area with his divine sense. The Xia family's experts had nowhere to hide. Locking onto the few with the strongest auras, Qin Feng grabbed them with his hand and tore through the void. 3 of the Xia family's experts were caught and brought into the palace. One of them was the strongest. It was a white-haired, angry old man. Cold qi flowed all over his body, as if he was a giant world of ice. His body emitted the aura of an almighty martial artist. Countless ice laws erupted from his body. However, under the giant hand they collapsed. This is the Xia family's old ancestor. The monarchs of the Heishui country and Qin country were ashen. This kind of old ancestor-level person, in the Qin country and Heishui country, were the 2 old ancestors of the royal family. To think that such an existence would be caught by a handful of bugs. As soon as 1 martial Dao expert and 2 martial Dao magnates fell into the lunar disk, they immediately showed some signs of abnormalities. With just a glance, the 2 monarchs felt their hearts turn cold. Indeed, they are in cahoots with the Qiankuan sect. How dare they sell so many ice elemental spiritual materials to the Qiankuan sect? Qin Feng let out a smile. Indeed, there was no smoke without fire. Sweeping his gaze across the 2 monarchs, he shouted, "Both of you be my witnesses. The frozen ice country's royal family is audacious. They are in cahoots with the enemy, and they are even selling spiritual materials to the Qiankuan sect." The 2 monarchs' faces turned ugly. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with killing intent. The great moon divine light flashed and the great moon wheel in the center spun. In an instant, many experts of the Xia clan, including the old ancestor of the Xia clan, were killed silently. With a wave of his hand, it was as though streaks of godly light had sliced through the entire frozen ice country. As long as one had the bloodline of the frozen ice country, they would die instantly. After cultivating to the Saint Realm, Qin Feng's control over space had already exceeded the imagination of most powerful martial artists. Within 10,000 miles, it was as though he was just inches away. It was as though he was in the god domain. Such power was beyond the reach of most saints. Wiping out the royal family of the frozen ice country with a single thought, Qin Feng swept his gaze across the two monarchs, whose legs were trembling. The two of them were scared out of their wits. De Xiu waved his hand and a void tornado appeared in the palace. It wrapped around the two of them and brought them deep into the endless void. The two monarchs felt the world spin, and they did not know when they had appeared in the familiar palace. For a moment, it was as though they were in a dream. Qin Feng didn't pay any attention to the civil and military officials of the ice country who were in a complete mess. With a flash of his body, he appeared in a dark underground cave. Cold air was blowing out from the depths of the cave. A beautiful and cold girl was breathing in and out cold air with her naked body in the cold ice. There's one more. Chapter 785. Guanruolin? Qin Feng's face was full of ridicule as he looked at the exquisite and alluring body in front of him. A few dusty memories came to his mind. When he first came to Shanhe City, he had a grudge with the Guan clan and was chased down by the Guan clan. The Zhua clan's brother, Suya. Thinking of Suya, Qin Feng looked at Guanruolin. The mother is more voluptuous, more mature, but the daughter is younger, but the body structure seems to be the same. His eyes flashed with a strange look. After 2 years of development, perhaps because she had cultivated a special martial arts technique, although the girl was petite, her curves were quite hot. Being stared at by such a piercing gaze, as long as one did not lose consciousness, they would know. Furthermore, Qin Feng did not even bother to hide himself. Guanruolin was embarrassed and angry, but she could not say anything. She cultivated the 9 revolving ice soul technique. When she heard that the frozen ice country had a pre-celestial ice emperor Frostpoint, she rushed over. The 9 revolving ice soul technique was passed down by the ancient frozen ice god. Guanruolin had coincidentally encountered danger and obtained the inheritance of the frozen ice god. Although the 9 revolving ice soul technique was a legendary technique with unbelievable power, there was a taboo when cultivating this technique. That was when breaking through, one had to be in an extremely cold place. Furthermore, one could not have an inch of ice on one's body. Otherwise, it would block one's meridians and acupoints, easily causing one's true qi to go berserk. In order to cultivate this technique, she filled the cave with extremely cold ice soul divine light, preventing outsiders from entering. Who would have thought that she would meet her old enemy, Qin Feng? He actually tore through the restrictions and barged in. Feeling the burning gaze on her skin, Guanruolin felt as if her lungs were about to explode from anger. This bastard, wait for me to recover my movements. Guanruolin was extremely angry, but she quickly thought that even if she recovered her movements, she would not be able to beat Qin Feng. As he thought of this, a flush rose from his skin. Her blood and qi went berserk. Not good. Guanruolin's eyes flashed with a trace of anger, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Oh, you spat blood. What's wrong? Did you get excited from seeing an old friend? Qin Feng's tone was infuriating. Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Guanruolin's face was as pale as paper. Her phoenix eyes stared fixedly at Qin Feng. Her fine black hair fluttered without any wind, covering the 3 points of her body. However, she didn't know that in Qin Feng's eyes, she was even more alluring. Go away. It was as if he had gritted his teeth to say the 2 words. The 9 revolving ice spirit true power in his body flowed in reverse along with his blood and qi, crazily running around. The excruciating pain made it extremely difficult for her to even move a muscle. But following the sound of Qin Feng's footsteps, Guanruolin didn't know where she got the strength and sent a palm strike towards Qin Feng. Qin Feng's hand was as fast as lightning as it grabbed one of the young girl's jade-like hands. Casually, he stopped the young girl's supple and slender waist that was as thin as silk. Slender grip, ice-skin jade bone. Qin Feng secretly praised the elasticity of the tentacle. At this moment, the front half of the Guan Ruolan's white jade-like body was completely exposed in front of Qin Feng's body. Under the dim and transparent light of the ice crystal jade, 2 light purple spots were half covered by her hair, emitting a shocking allure. What a little snake beauty! Qin Feng's delicate and handsome to the point of bewitching, revealed a trace of a smile. Pucci, being restrained by Qin Feng, her body fell into his embrace in a shameful position. She struggled but was unable to get up. Her body failed to live up to her expectations. In a fit of anger, Guan Ruolin spat out another mouthful of blood. TSK, this is precious essence blood. A martial artist has 3 mouthfuls of essence blood. You have already spat out 2 mouthfuls. You are really generous. Hearing the words, Guan Ruolin wanted to perish together with Qin Feng, but the ice soul true power in her body made her unable to summon her last bit of strength. At this moment, she could only watch in despair as the black-robed demon played with her body. Even if I die, I will come back to settle the score with you. Guan Ruolin stared at Qin Feng. Don't look at me like that. Meeting me is your misfortune, and also your fate. Qin Feng could see that the Guan Ruolin's body cultivated an extremely terrifying ice attribute true power. This true power could be called half a step into the heavenly Tao technique. I can't let her die. I will bury a chess piece beside Yi Ding. Qin Feng's eyes were like the abyss. This lady is a disciple of an old antique within the sect. Now she has even practiced such a powerful secret art. In addition, she herself is also a great beauty. It is likely that Yi Ding will not eat such a fresh and delicious bait by his side. The best part is that this girl and I have a grudge. But since she has been seen, then she is considered one of my people. I can't let others take advantage of her. Why not let this girl's emotions enter the nirvana stage, and automatically seal her body? This way Yi Ding will not be able to touch her. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with countless sinister thoughts. Guan Ruolin watched as the ice soul true power in her body went berserk. Countless spiritual veins flowed in reverse, and her last bit of life was gone. Am I going to disappear like this? Guan Ruolin's heart was filled with unwillingness, thinking of the revenge of the Guan family, thinking of her ambition to become a god. It was not easy for her to encounter such a big world, and to die here. She was really unwilling. At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded out. Guan Ruolin, listen up. I have a supreme mental cultivation technique here that can help you escape, but there will be some repercussions. If you are willing, you can listen, but of course you can choose not to listen. This way I will have one less enemy. The 5 colors make people blind, the 5 sounds make people deaf, the 5 tastes make people happy, the galloping and hunting make people crazy, and the rare goods make people unable to do anything. It is the heart of a saint, not the eyes, so I took this. This was the emotionless secret art of the Heartless sect, one of the 10 demonic sects in the future. This was a peerless secret art that originated from the record of the unruffled sage. In the future, the Heartless sect, because of this disgusting art, caused countless peerless goddesses to become ice cubes and stones that countless experts were helpless against. However, it was different from the record of the unruffled sage's absolute emotionlessness. This nirvana emotionless art was to temporarily extinguish one's 7 emotions and 6 desires. After extinguishing, there was still transformation, which was to first forget emotions, then develop emotions, enter emotions, and finally obtain emotions. From Qin Feng's understanding, it was to cut off all distracting thoughts, cultivate the great joy of the unmoving nirvana heart, then awaken one's original heart, and finally complete the heavenly Tao. The emotions here were not referring to love, but to the distracting thoughts of the mortal world, and even to the point of not being loyal. Cutting off all these emotions, only the pursuit of martial arts would be left. For a martial arts expert, if it was just a thought, it would be quite terrifying. Many scriptures flowed into Guan Ruolan's body. At first, Guan Ruolan did not care, but after listening to part of it, she was instantly attracted by this scripture, and unknowingly began to cultivate. A pure and tranquil eternity unmoving concept was born on her body. Her state of mind calmed down, and the ice soul true power that was rampaging in her body seemed to have lost its momentum. Under this concept, it was slowly being subdued. Chapter 786. Countless mysterious scriptures appeared on Guan Ruolan's skin under the flow of the ice spirit true force. They seemed to have melted into her jade-like skin inch by inch, causing her skin to emit a miraculous white light like autumn water. Sealed jade body? Qin Feng's eyes flickered. This had always been a mystery of the Heartless sect. It was rumored that the Heartless sect's goddesses who cultivated this technique would automatically seal their jade body and turn into stone. Qin Feng had heard of this in his previous life and had always been curious about it. His fingers subconsciously poked at a certain part of the girl's body and then knocked. Bang bang. It was like a stone. The rumors are true? Qin Feng muttered to himself. Suddenly, Qin Feng's entire body stiffened. He felt a pair of eyes staring at him, akin to a cold primordial beast. Raising his head, he saw Guan Ruolan staring at him with an extremely cold gaze. Like a thief who was caught, Qin Feng's face reddened as his body flashed and disappeared into the underground cave. Guan Ruolan's eyes were cold, but strangely, she had no emotions. Her eyes were as cold as a blade, and there was a void power ripple around her body. Obviously, she had broken through the sea rebirth realm. Glancing at her naked body, she cast out countless hand seals. Like a tornado, the frigid air in the innate Ice Emperor's cold acupoint was forcefully sucked out, turning into a rainbow-colored palace dress that covered her body. She scanned her surroundings, and a trace of black light flashed across her cold phoenix eyes. Her figure flashed and she flew out of the Ice Emperor's cold cave. She disappeared from the ice country and flew towards the depths of the snow region. After she left, Qin Feng appeared above the palace. Qin Feng's eyes flashed with a sigh. Although the art of nirvana emotionless was powerful, only a small number of outstanding disciples in the Heartless sect could break through the first stage and enter the second stage. Most of them were lost in the state of indifference and were completely devoured by the heavenly Tao of indifference. Just like what Qin Feng said, it was fate for Guan Ruolan to meet him. If Guan Ruolan could finally break free from her emotions, then her future would be limitless. After casually plundering the Xia family's several thousand years of savings, Qin Feng instantly traversed 500 kilometers like an invisible beam of profound light. He arrived at a place where green mountains faced each other and vast rivers flowed. A wide and turbulent river gushed out from the mouth of the tiger. The water surface was several hundred miles long, so wide that it was dazzling. This was the Cold Water River. Qin Feng casually found a place and waited for the Dragon Gate to appear. He wanted to comprehend the summoning power of the Dragon Gate. Below the cliff, water vapor surged. As the sun set, Qin Feng sat down cross-legged and focused on comprehending the new sage's power. At dusk, Qin Feng, who was meditating and adjusting his breath, suddenly had a change in his expression. Silently, a piece of information was transmitted into his heart from the depths of the void. Inner demon voice transmission. A piece of information flowed into the depths of his soul. Qin Feng opened his eyes and pondered. The battle of the star-defying sect is really good at picking a time. This is really killing several birds with one stone. Should I hurry back? In the next moment, Qin Feng rejected this decision. No, the primitive Dragon Gate is about to appear. This is a great opportunity that only comes once in an era. If I miss this era, my hopes of advancing to the Saint King realm in a short period of time will be dashed. If I go back, I'll definitely be pestered by those old antiques. Those people won't give up the position of mountain god so easily. Perhaps the mastermind behind Cold Spring Mountain's Sky Kuei Sage is one of these old fellows. However, even if I can't take action, it doesn't mean that I don't have a way. I'm no longer Qin Feng without any foundation. After pondering for a while, Qin Feng sneered and took out a silver-white star bell. It shook slightly. In an ancient cave, a beautiful woman in a palace dress was breathing in the essence of the stars. Her eyes moved, and a similar star bell appeared. Qin Feng? Qin Feng's divine sense moved and a few words appeared on the star bell. Senior sister, do me a favor. Celestial Maiden Jialan. Speak. At the same time, several other great sages and sage kings received the message from Qin Feng through the star bell in their cave abode. These great sages and sage kings were senior and junior brothers who had participated in the battle against the Golden Light Demon Kingdom with Qin Feng. Most of them had received benefits from Qin Feng, and they were the few who knew about Qin Feng's background. After a short moment, Qin Feng smiled from the top of the cliff. It's done. In the cave abode, Celestial Maiden Jialan sat cross-legged and put away the star bell in her hand. After pondering for a while, she raised a hand and flicked her fingers. Clang! 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 The star bell at the entrance swayed without any wind, letting out a deep chime that resounded throughout Jialan Peak. 7 to 8 extremely dense starlight appeared at the entrance of the cave abode from the foot of the mountain. 7 to 8 sage auras flowed, filling the void with a strong pressure. Master! The 8 sages lowered their heads, their faces cold. Go to Zhuzifu and help my junior brother Qin Feng. Don't let anyone take advantage of him. A faint pressure came from the cave abode. Yes. The 8 figures cupped their fists and silently disappeared from Jialan Peak. In the Pan King Elephant Cave, a great sage with white hair and beard walked out of the cave abode. In front of him, several sages gathered. Senior brother, this is just a small matter. You've come out of seclusion. The Pan King Great Sage glanced at the sages and shook his head. It's fine. It's the thought that counts. This sage is going to the front lines of the wilderness to establish a new sect. If junior brother Qin Feng is willing to help, this sect establishment will be a cinch. Establishing a new sect at the front lines. The sages were secretly envious. Although it was dangerous to go to the front lines, it was different to establish a new sect there. Dividing the Spirit Mountain, establishing one's own sect, and harvesting the orbs of will of an area. These benefits were the dreams of many sages. However, to establish a new sect, one would have to hire a mystic master to set up a formation. This was a huge expense. There were many mystic masters in the sect, but none of them could compare to Qin Feng, who was a master mystic master. I see. This is a good opportunity to do junior brother Qin Feng a favor. Let's go, let's go. The sages looked at each other and laughed together. Like a few shooting stars, they flew towards Zhuzifu. On the other side, True Lord Windhowl was about to walk out of the cave when the 5 sage kings appeared outside. Light Master, Spirit Master, Metal Master. What are the 5 of you doing? True Lord Windhowl looked at the 5 sage kings in surprise. Senior brother, are you going to Zhuzifu? The 5 sage kings looked at each other awkwardly. That's right. True Lord Windhowl nodded. He had also received Qin Feng's request for help. True Lord Windhowl admired Qin Feng from the bottom of his heart. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that Qin Feng had killed 2 wood ancestors. Especially that fighting spirit that was willing to risk his life made True Lord Windhowl have a good impression of him. Not to mention that Qin Feng was such a young 7th grade mystic master. Senior brother, let's go together. The 5 sage kings looked at each other and said in unison. Chapter 787. What's going on? How could this be? Tian Kuei's face was ashen as he looked at the dozen or so sage auras in the distant sky. He had just announced the start of the Battle of the Stars, and in less than half a day, more than 15 sages had arrived. More than 8 sage kings. More than 3 great sages. And there was still a steady stream of experts rushing over from all directions. Behind him, the experts invited by Big Kong, Crimson Maple Mountain, Great Yong, Little Mosquito Mountain, Black Water, and Pitfall Mountain were all pale, their faces ashen. How were they supposed to fight? Among those present, Cold Spring Mountain and Cold Spring Palace Master Tian Kuei himself were only sages. The other side had more than 15 sages, more than 8 sage kings, and more than 3 great sages. This was simply, how could this be? Tian Kuei Saint bitterly smiled as he looked at the many tyrannical existences in the sky. He had thought that Qin Feng would personally take action, and he had also thought that the 3 sages of Willow Earth Peak would invite the experts of Willow Earth Peak. He had dealt with all of these, but he had never imagined that so many experts would come. Such a luxurious force was far from what a sage of Kong Gold Peak like him could handle. On the other side, the 3 sages of Willow Earth Peak were also looking at the many sages descending in the sky with astonishment. The outcome is actually like this. Sitting on top of the cliff, Qin Feng listened to the roars of the rising tide of the Hanshui River while receiving the continuous stream of information. He was extremely astonished. He had thought that being able to invite a portion of the people was already a great honor. He had never imagined that 100 people would respond to his call. I owe them a great favor. Qin Feng smacked his lips. Although this was what he said, he was still happy. This meant that he had at least gained a foothold in Xingqian school. However, his influence was still incomparable to that of the 9 true disciples. But this was already a pretty good start. Boom! At this moment, Qin Feng's ears twitched, and he seemed to hear the divine sound of 10,000 seas roaring. Raising his head, through his abnormally active bloodline, he seemed to see 10,000 divine dragons soaring into the sky, transforming into an ancient primeval divine gate. The prehistoric dragon gate has appeared. Qin Feng stood up, his blood surging uncontrollably. His hair danced wildly in the wind. Suddenly, he raised his head to the sky and let out a roar that sounded like an ancient dragon python. A strong wind blew and in the next moment, a huge black snake appeared. Dragon sect, dragon sect. At this moment, countless existences flew out from their hiding spots within the various rivers and roared into the skies. It's starting. At this moment, countless powerful beings within the spirit sea realm revealed looks of joy on their faces. At the same time, countless experts in the spirit sea realm sensed that the yuan qi of heaven and earth had instantly become denser. There was also an exuberant vitality contained within. The great era has truly arrived. Some ancient existences who had been immersed in their own world for countless years also began to give up on their own accord, preparing to break out of their seals and come out into the world. In an ancient domain, countless substantial dragon-shaped yuan qi surged like a tide. The center of the yuan qi gave off a bright light, as if the entire domain was releasing a great joy. This wave of energy swept across the heavens. Countless ancient existences were alarmed and couldn't help but cast their gazes towards this domain. Their eyes were filled with shock. The ancient true dragons with extremely terrifying auras let out surprised dragon roars one after another. The divine dragon seat has appeared. Our chance is here. This divine dragon seat, I, the dragon emperor of the Huai River, must obtain it. Bulsh *T, I, the dragon emperor of the East Sea, am the most qualified to obtain it. Kill, kill, kill. In the battle of the Great Tao, it's either you die or I die. Whoever dares to stop me from obtaining the deity seat will die. Kill. Desolate and boundless dragon roars rose and fell as tens of thousands of true dragons charged towards the deity seat in the center. At the same time, with the appearance of the prehistoric Dragon Gate, countless rivers and streams seemed to emit layers of hazy brilliance. Qin Feng's huge snake body coiled up in the wilderness of the Hanshui River. He stared intently at the Hanshui River in front of him, sensing the changes within. A primitive wildness seemed to be calling out to him from the river's surface. The Dragon Gate has opened. At this moment, all living beings with dragon blood and dragon nature couldn't help but charge towards the Dragon Gate in the deepest part of the river. Qin Feng's huge snake body submerged into the water. Immediately, a message seemed to enter the depths of his soul through his bloodline. The 3 stages of the Dragon Gate are not allowed to use any true force or external force. You can only rely on your physical body to fight. The first stage of the Dragon Gate is to fight for the origin of each river. The winner will enter the next stage. There will only be one winner in each river. The 3 messages were simple and clear. The origin of the rivers? Qin Feng's huge snake eyes flashed with human-like surprise. The origin of the rivers was the essence formed by the spiritual energy of the rivers. In other words, it was the origin of the rivers. According to ancient legends, obtaining the origin of the rivers would allow one to become a river god. A river god. A river god was a type of deity position of a water god. This kind of deity position wasn't inferior to an 8th-class mountain god position. In fact, some river gods with water attributes could even be compared to a 7th-class deity position. In ancient times, the rivers were usually controlled by flood dragons, true dragons, and other types of dragons. These true dragons were born as water gods. Could it be that the reason why the Dragon Gate wants us to fight for the origin of the rivers is to use the power of the rivers to stimulate our bloodline? Qin Feng thought to himself. No matter what, this was a rare opportunity. Usually, the origin of the rivers was hidden in the countless water veins. It was impossible to refine it. Now the opportunity had come. After refining a river, one would become the god of a river. Charge! Like hundreds of rivers converging into the sea, Qin Feng quickly rushed towards the upper reaches of the Hanshui River, following the connection deep in his bloodline. The origin of the Hanshui River was in the snow region. The wide river surface was crowded with countless spiritual beasts, ferocious beasts, and even ordinary wild beasts that wanted to enter the Dragon Gate. After being stimulated by the bloodline, countless aquatic creatures rushed upstream with all their might. Most of them were carp. Normally, all kinds of rare and unusual carps would come out from all directions. These were all pure-blooded dragon carps. They had the bloodline of true dragons. There were also many snake species, tortoise species, centipede species, lizard species. The wide river surface became extremely crowded all of a sudden. Some powerful ferocious beasts went on a killing spree and devoured these exotic creatures excitedly. Qin Feng saw with his own eyes that some weaker ferocious beasts began to change after devouring these exotic creatures. After an ordinary sawtooth red carp devoured many dragon carps around it, it grew dragon whiskers and had the power of a dragon. It became a hungong fish, an ancient species of carp. The hungong fish controlled the water flow and was said to be able to fight with a flood dragon. The aura it emitted directly broke through the realm of a martial arts overlord. It was like a tyrant in the water, causing many ferocious beasts to retreat. The hungong fish, which weighed a few 100 pounds, rushed over greedily when it saw Qin Feng's 300 to 400 feet tall figure. "You're courting death." Qin Feng's snake eyes flashed with a trace of disdain. With a sweep of his flat snake tail, the huge hungong fish exploded instantly and turned into a bloody foam, attracting countless dragon carps to devour it. "I'm still working overtime. Tomorrow is still 4 o'clock. It's not easy to get a day off, and I've given it to you. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.